Hello and welcome to DBN's Game Day Live. And this is a European takeover. More specifically, British face-to-face is back after the pandemic with some new names and faces as well. Joining me on the stream, fellow European, German, he wasn't there. Why didn't you come to Britain? It's Mr. Robert Schuper. Hello.
Hello, Wardy. Would have loved to be there. You tried hard to get me to go, but my schedule wouldn't make it. I'm sorry. But I'm here to cover it with you.
States and not come to Britain. Come on, we're so much closer.
True.
And we have resident / token North American, Mr. David Hood. Hello.
I am so glad to be here as a North American representative. But let me tell you what I'm really excited about, which is bringing this DBN coverage, this Game Day Live coverage to the European tour. It's a great day, I think, for world diplomacy to get the European tournaments onto this coverage.
Well, thank you for taking us under your wing, David and DBN. This was the brand new tournament held in Chesterfield in Derbyshire in England. Spirecon, hosted by Mr. Chris Woolger, who those of you who have played Tour of Britain or indeed on the Playdip site might know. He invited a bunch of us over to that lovely part of Middle England, filled with mock Tudor buildings and the twisted spire of Chesterfield's parish church, which gives apparently its name to a lot of things in the town, and now Spirecon, this brand new diplomacy tournament, which also on the Sunday, because it was a 2-day tournament, featured plenty of other games as well, because we had the place to ourselves. I'm new to face-to-face diplomacy, David, but it sounds like Britain in years gone by has had quite a rich history in this with Manacon and the like. Have you ever managed to get over here for a game before?
I have not, but I have followed the British face-to-face scene literally since I started in the 1980s, because frankly, back in the day, well, the first World DibCon was held in 1988 in England at Manacon. There's a reason for that. Back in those days, the European tour was just as crowded, just as busy as the North American tour. So I'm hoping we get back to that eventually. When I ran World DibCon in 1990 in North Carolina, we had, 25 players from overseas, of whom, 10 or 11 were from the UK. We had Germans, we had Belgians, we had Swedes, we had Australians, we had 5 from Austria. It was just, it was really neat back in the day when we had all these international players traveling everywhere, and players from North America traveling to Europe or to Australasia. So I'm really looking forward to coming out of the pandemic, this part of the puzzle coming back into place.
And Robert, you are new like me to face-to-face diplomacy. And I believe you're trying to encourage a German scene to become up and running. Where are we on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar story, I think. From what I've read on the internet, the German scene used to be huge, and there is very, very little left of it at all, unfortunately. But we have started a German language virtual diplomacy league again. We've had our first 2 games so far, have 2 more planned for this year. And yeah, that's hopefully the starting point to finally get back to face-to-face action again. It's obviously always a little easier to get 7 people somewhere scattered through Germany together for a game than getting 7 people in the same city together for a board of diplomacy, a actual physical board of diplomacy. But I'm very much hoping that we will get back to having some sort of a German tournament, German con again, somewhere in the years to come. That would be absolutely amazing.
Well, I very much look forward to receiving an invitation to come over to Dresden and play some games.
I will totally let you know.
Excellent. That was a firm commitment right there. You hear that? He's going to host one.
And you will come.
We actually had some overseas representation at this tournament as well. There'll be a few names that aren't that recognizable to DBN viewers. However, I will bring up the top list by DBNI ranking participation wise, and as you'll see, not many people who have featured in DBNI ranking tournaments this season yet. So we might see some fresh play, some play that might differ somewhat from the meta, perhaps. What might you be looking forward to, David?
Well, 3 of these players I'm really looking forward to seeing play. Christopher Ward, I'm not sure exactly what I'm expecting from that character. Bradley, of course, has played face-to-face in North America recently. I believe he went to Cascadia, if I remember correctly. Lauren Lloyd went to my tournament in North Carolina just a few months ago. Matt has played a lot of virtual, started playing a lot in virtual. He's an Irishman, as I recall, has been on my show, Deadline, before. What I'm looking to see is actually the names that are not on here. That's part of the fun of diplomacy, as far as I'm concerned, is seeing new people play and see how they play. That just adds to the richness of the hobby in the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as much as I'm looking forward to seeing 3 out of these 4 play.
Thank you, David. Robert.
Yeah, totally. I agree with David that new players and new matters are always very, very interesting to see. One player I'm looking forward to see as well, who's not on this list, but who I've seen that he has played, is Roni Mordvinov from Israel. I've played a bunch with him in VDL round 1 games. I think, Wardy, you were on quite a few of those boards as well. We always have a eclectic little cast of countries there in VDL round 1, usually like 1 Brit, 1 German, 1 Dutchman, 1 Swede, 1 Israeli, and 2 Americans playing through the night or something, or one from Australia. And so I'm thrilled to see that Roni made it to GB, and I don't know if it was his first face-to-face tournament, but it well might have been. So I'm looking forward to see him play. And similar thing for Matt Lynch. He was also one of those guys who were often in the first round of VDL in the past year or 2.
Very good. This was played under a new scoring system, I think devised by tournament director Chris Woolger, whereby it's a ranking system that didn't reward shared board tops. The game would count back through the years to to reward the person who was leading the board most recently. In addition to that, it encouraged eliminating players because it was partly a draw-based system where 60 points would be shared equally between the surviving powers, and it was draw includes all survivors. There were some pity points, if you like, for countries who were eliminated. They would receive 1 point per year that they held centers. So if they were eliminated in 1907, they would get 7 points. So bear that in mind when we look at these games.
And was there a drop round? I think there were 3. So we have 3 tournament rounds and no drop round, right? That's also always something that is significant when you think about the scoring of a particular tournament. When you have a 3-round tournament with no drop round, it's always a bit more like a marathon than a sprint. It's more about consistency, whether Whereas when you have 2 rounds that count and you can drop one, it's more about getting 2 very, very good scores. So that should be interesting to watch as well, I think.
Yeah, well reminded. An excellent point. Yeah, three rounds and all 3 counted. So no drop round. You needed to score well at every opportunity, really. Whether that meant more or fewer risks perhaps remains to be seen.
The other important thing about scoring systems is whether there is a time limit to the games, which I believe in this case there was a time limit, but there was also a year limit, which I believe was the end of 1909. Am I right, Wardy?
That's correct. Yeah, there was a time limit which no game actually reached, although I think round 1, board 1 came close to that. But yeah, a couple did reach the end of 1909, which was the year limit. So I guess you might know, because of your final round at DixieCon, which is a draw-based scoring, that can sometimes create some interesting final couple of years when there's an end in a draw-based system.
That's correct, but in my DixieCon, I use a thing where you don't know exactly when it's going to end. You just know a range. There's a 2-hour range within which it can end, and the goal for that, and I think I adopted that from the Australian hobby back in the long time ago days. And the goal was, or is, to minimize the effect of knowing that the end of the road is coming and when do you slam on the brakes. It's been minimized by having that. But people ask me sometimes, are games better unlimited, or are they better with a time limit? And the answer is, with most questions about this sort of thing, it depends. And in a tournament setting, it's often true that you have to have a limit. Sometimes there's a space issue. If you're at a tournament with other game events and stuff, you just simply can't do unlimited rounds. And of course, the last round, if it's on a Sunday, everybody's got to go back home, you got to have an end. So the answer is, play under both systems. Just adapt your style to both systems and realize that diversity in the way things are run is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we were governed by the opening hours of the establishment we were frequenting. So we'll see what impact that may have had, if any. Right, I will bring up the player list for round 1, board 1. Now, some of these names will be familiar to people, others might not. Who jumps out at you, Robert?
Well, I got to look at that Turkish player, the German player who's playing Turkey, Tadeusz Struck. I don't know him, but great to see somebody from Germany. So Tadeusz, if you should be watching this and want to play virtually, hit me up on Discord. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see our very own host of this show, Christopher Ward, playing Italy. Looking forward to that.
Bernard, I have played with before, or actually, I can't remember if I played together, but he came to a tournament I ran years ago in North America. He's a longtime face-to-face player with a lot of success in the past. And of course, Gary Sturley actually runs the Tour of Britain virtual tournament that is run, surprisingly, out of Great Britain. And so it'll be fun to see him play as well. Before you go to the game, I'll do the neato cool transition. Warden.
Oh, very good. That's it.
Hell yeah. Good transition.
Oh no, I'd done it as well.
I jinxed it.
It kind of worked, and I took it off. Oh well, I'm new to this, okay, guys. The diplomats, we don't have these things. So here we go. Do you want to say anything before we have a look at Spring 01, or shall we dive right in?
Let's go.
Dive in.
Okay, David, do you want to take the West, and let's give Robert the East?
You cannot look at the West here without seeing two things immediately. The English in the English Channel, which, that there are people that think that's what you ought to do at least 25% of the time, if not more. And then you've got Burgundy that is completely vacant. Those two things may be clues that tell us something about what's going on here, because it's probably FG friendship and probably England at least not trusting the French. He did not move the army to Wales, so it's not a sort of a whole assault against the French, because he went to Yorkshire instead, giving him the option of convoying through the North Sea. So we'll see, but those are two clues that I would point to.
Yeah, I like that a lot when you open to the channel not to put the army into Wales, just because leaving North Sea can be very, very dangerous. Because you give Germany that sneaky move to put the fleet from Denmark into North Sea when you take Norway, which you usually want to do because it's your safe build, unless Russia opens north. And so I think having the option to convoy the army there is often the safer option, even if you want to go after France and not Germany or Russia particularly. So I like that a lot. And yeah, if we look at the East, can't miss the Sunstrom opening. My man Tadeo is going all out against Russia, saying here I come, goes to Armenia. Let's see how it works out. I've often seen it work out fairly poorly for Turkey, because AI can be very devastating when Russia and Turkey are fighting. But if you can get somebody from Gary, like either Gary or Wardy on side, I think he could have a good game here. So I'm curious to follow that. The rest is pretty standard in the East. Venice hold, nothing to write home about. Bounce in Galicia, bounce in Black Sea. We've seen that tons of times before, yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Bring on the fall.
Prepare to fall.
Wow.
So we see Turkey bouncing Black Sea once again and getting into Romania with Austrian help. That's a commitment by Austria, because you always run the risk that Turkey bounces you out of Greece when you decide not to support yourself into Greece. But I guess you saw that Turkey committed sort of against Russia already. But the important point about this is that Turkey is a bit out of position. I think most players agree that it is not a great thing for Turkey when you don't take Bulgaria and take Romania instead, because that army is a bit isolated, especially if you haven't gotten into Black Sea, which is the case here. So let's see if this works out for Tadeusz. He's going to have some interesting decisions about the builds, whether he trusts Italy and Austria or not. Wardy takes 2 builds, good for you. Gets into Trieste, but doesn't do the quick AI thing with a fleet into Aegean, and he rather convoys into Tunis. I don't love to see that if I'm Austria. I'm usually saying, okay, you can have Trieste. I'm fine if we want to do a quick AI, but I want to see Aegean as well. But some Austrians are just fine with it. So we're going to see how this works. And George is in trouble. At least he gets a build in the north in Sweden, but that's about all.
There's a risk from Austria here, isn't there? If you're telling, I mean, it could be unwanted support from Serbia for Bulgaria to Romania, but if you're arranging that with Turkey, that's a risk that Turkey doesn't just decide to bounce you out of Greece and decides they don't want to go to Romania.
Yeah, totally.
In the West, it is true that the Russians get Sweden because Denmark doesn't move, which is usually tells us something about what German intentions are. At least they're not they're not completely pro-English, or he might have bounced him in Sweden. But we've got the English actually going to Belgium with the French support. So perhaps if there was a hatchet there, it has been buried by the two sides. But as Robert pointed out earlier, North Sea to Norway is quite an interesting move to put the fleet there instead of the army. And, it could be that Bernard was worried defensively that he wanted to keep an army home. Perhaps he was worried that the Russians would react negatively to an army in Norway, which is much more threatening to the Russian position than a fleet. But it is really quite a risk to take at this point. And as you were talking about position earlier, is Turkey in poor position? This puts England in a little bit of a potentially poor position to have no fleets in the water at the end of 1901.
At least they get 2 builds, so
True.
If they want to, they can put down 2 fleets and then support themselves into North Sea, which is a secure move. But yeah, I agree, because they didn't totally know that they would get Belgium. Could be that France was lying or something. So it's certainly a risk they have taken, and it seems to have worked out so far.
What do you make of France's decision here? It looked like the openings from France and Germany look like they weren't going to bother one another. So I'm a little surprised that France has decided to throw this particular bone to England, unless they knew they were getting it anyway.
Well, he wants the English out of the English Channel, even if he's going to jump on England soon. He wants the English out of the English Channel just from a positional point of view. And putting the fleet into Belgium is really not all that harmful in the short run to the French. That doesn't border anything French. It does border Holland, but it's not an army, so it can't go to Ruhr or whatever. So it's not really all that terribly offensive. And to the extent it's remotely offensive against somebody, it's really more anti-German to be there than anti-French, assuming France is going to build a fleet in Brest, which I certainly assume.
Yeah, I think it's a brave move because you leave Brest uncovered. If England goes for that, that is pretty bad for you. But if it works out like that, I love that move. No matter what you want to do, as David pointed out, that's, I think, just a move that benefits Matt Lynch over whatever covering Brest or going for Belgium himself, and not not worrying about that fleet and potentially still having that English fleet there sitting in the channel. And France still gets 2 builds, so that's perfectly fine, I think.
Yeah, and as you say, Brest open for a build, if indeed they want to. Okay, so what are we expecting?
We better see a French fleet. We better see a German fleet. We better see 2 English fleets. That's my theory about the West.
In the East, I would be surprised not to see Army Moscow. With that Turkey coming that aggressively for you, I don't think you want to build in St. Pete. Even if you're not completely trusting England, you can still always cover from Moscow and go to St. Pete. And yeah, Turkey and Italy are a bit interesting. It will reveal quite a bit about the directions they want to go. Will we see 2 Italian fleets, or 1 army and 1 fleet? Will we see a Turkish fleet or a Turkish army? That should be interesting. There are options.
Yep.
There we go. 2 English fleets. We got 2 Italian fleets. We do get 1 of each from Germany. We get 1 of each from France, but the fleet is in Marseille.
Yeah,
that is a love letter from Matt Lynch to Bernard Andreoli. Is what that is.
The thing that is really curious to me is St. Pete fleet north coast. If you are attacked that violently by Turkey, that's a bold move. I'm not sure if it's a good one, but we'll see. I think George is a fairly experienced player as well. I've seen him around a few times, so he will probably know what he's doing. And maybe he thinks he's got it figured out diplomatically. Maybe he's feeling confident that Gary and potentially also Wardy will be on his side. If that's the case, yeah, sure, he can do without that army. But if potentially AT is coming for him, that can get very, very dangerous for him very soon.
Okay, let's have a look at spring 1902. A lot going on here.
So, I mean, if we start in the east, Russia gets into Romania and destroys that Turkish army, but in return, Turkey gets into Black Sea and Sevastopol, so not that much gained. And yeah, now he has a very difficult position, because the only way to cover Moscow is from Ukraine, because he didn't build anything in Moscow. If he does that, it's very unlikely that he will keep Romania come fall. And AI just seem to be the ones who are benefiting from this RT fight. Austria gets into Bulgaria, retakes Trieste. It's a bit of a bad thing for Austria that they lose Galicia, but in the long term, they should be fine. Italy is in Eastern Med rather than Aegean, so potentially feared that they would get bounced out of Aegean, but Turkey just made sure that they're going to get Black Sea. But yeah, I love this position for AI and RT. Even if they get their stuff together right now, it might be too late already. AI might have been unleashed. Unless they stab each other soon, they will probably take the dominant position in the East here.
In the West, that love letter appears to have worked in the sense that there's some EF cooperation here, I think, or at least an agreement to go different directions. And the Germans have realized that and had to go to Helgoland and went to Skagerrak to make sure the English couldn't retreat there or go there. That was the point of going to Skagerrak. So this is looking up to be an EF versus perhaps RG type situation in the West. And then when you see Mao to the English Channel, you wonder if that's still EF cooperation. I think so. I think that's there to quote help, end quote, but we shall see in the long run whether that's true. But there's, frankly, some bouncing here in terms of Belgium and Denmark, so not really any immediate progress. The Russians couldn't really hold Norway. That was the issue. You can't really go and take Norway with just 2 units if you don't have anybody to backfill St. Pete, because if the English retreat to Barents, then you're not doing yourself that much good. The English can either do this or they can go to St. Pete and you have a guess. In this case, George guessed that English would go for St. Pete, and it didn't work out.
Wow, the East has some very interesting moves. Turkey decided to go from Constantinople to Aegean. I can only suppose thinking that they would bounce something. I'm not sure if that was the most likely thing to do, because it seemed very likely that Italy would either do what they did, which is the classical Lepanto, convoy Tunis to Syria, or actually try for Smyrna. But what happens is that Austria actually walks into Constantinople unopposed. Italy gets the convoy into Syria, and Turkey is really in a difficult position. We see that they have made up with Russia, but as I pointed out, it's probably too late already unless they can drive a wedge between A and I very soon. The only little sign of hope is that they at least managed to bounce the Austrian fleet out of Bulgaria so that Bulgaria stays neutral. How often do we see that Bulgaria stays neutral for the first 2 game years? But it's still worse for Turkey that way, because now they lose Constantinople and they hadn't owned Bulgaria before, so they are down to 3 centers already. And Russia just has to cover this turn. At least they keep Romania, but they're not getting into Vienna. They walk back to Moscow. David pointed out in the north, they cannot sustain their growth there. So this is not looking good for RT, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about this at the time, but if you're going to take on Norway with 2 fleets, you go from Sweden.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about covering St. Pete. That was the other way you could do it.
Yeah, if you trust Germany, which might have been a sensible assumption. If ENF is coming for them, they are in desperate need for a friend.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if that is that a misorder? I'm still getting used to the new interface here. Is that an erroneous support because Norway moves?
I think that could have been, and remember, this is face-to-face, and of course, you remember, Critch, you played this game. But in face-to-face, you sometimes have a plan, and then you're marking out right before the deadline to change the plan. You just didn't have time to make a new order for Sweden, possibly. And, of course, the order wouldn't have really mattered that much. You would certainly want to order to Norway in this situation. But
I think it looks to me like he tried to support the German fleet into Norway, which would have worked out. No, it wouldn't have worked out because England had 2. But I think that's because the line is sort of curved. It's not a straight line. So I think it's an aggressive, offensive support, not a
yes.
You're right. Yep, you're totally right, I think.
But Germany defended Denmark anyway, which was a wise decision because they might have lost it otherwise and they wouldn't have gotten into Norway. And Norway was English to begin with. So, yeah, probably the right decision on Ash's part.
Would you have moved Ukraine to Moscow, David, if you were in Russia's position here? I mean, you could shift Gal to Bohemia and Ukraine to Galicia if you're really tight now with Turkey. Is that that mistrust just slowing them down?
Or support Romania because you weren't sure if the AI were going to come after Romania in that situation. I think going to Moscow is probably throwing away any chance you've got to recover. It's true that if Turkey had gone there, that would be really bad for the Russians, but that was I think it was unlikely, and this is hard to recover from as the Russians. If you're not even in Ukraine to help defend Romania, for example. I mean, you just have so fewer options here. Unless his theory is that he can somehow diplomatically work out the East and use the Russian army in the North. I mean, maybe that's the theory, but there's not a lot of great choices here for George, just straight looking at the moves. His good choices are going to be diplomatic ones.
So we have
one build after O2. That is unusual as well. Only one build, one adjustment.
I'm guessing this is going to be an army, folks.
Fleet Danube. No Danube fleet. I'm disappointed.
That's a disappointment, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's see where this is heading.
Let's stay in the east.
That is a bit of a messy east. So there is a successful convoy into Bulgaria. So it looks like Austria supported that as well. Constantinople supported Sev to Bulgaria.
I think that's Aegean.
Oh, it's Aegean. Yeah, that makes more sense. That makes more sense because the rest of the Austrian moves don't look very anti-Italian. So no, you're right. AI continues. Aegean gets piffed. Italy gets into Smyrna. That little Italian army is doing a little walk around the Balkan areas, having a nice time being a tourist. Started in Trieste, went through Serbia, now arrives at Greece. Let's see where it will go after that. And curiously, Russia moves out of Galicia into Silesia. So I think Austria probably pitched something to Russia. And I mean, at least they're not taking Galicia either. So they could have just walked there or supported themselves. So I'm not quite sure what Gary Sterling is up to, but it is clearly something that is not just a plain out AI, let's kill RT as quickly as possible. It might be just to get Russia out of position for a turn or two and then strike even harder. We will see, but it's at least something a bit unusual. But yeah, apart from that, it looks like AI versus RT pretty much, pretty straightforward.
And the Russians have completely switched sides here and are helping the English into Denmark. That's combined with the move to Silesia. They've switched sides. And guess who else has switched sides? The French, who convoy to Wales. At the same time, the English army convoys out of England. So now Liverpool is gone. And he's got a shot, or he's going to at least force the English to cover London as well. Or take a guess about Belgium. There's a lot going on here. But we've got two switcheroos in the West in spring 1903.
This looks like really nice timing from France. Whether it's the right move from Russia or not remains to be seen.
I will say, though, and I know I am biased towards unit efficiency as opposed to diplomatic moving of units. I just don't like Gascony's Spain. I understand why you would do it. I would rather go ahead and put the army in Brest, give myself an option to convoy to Wales in the fall with a second army if I wanted to, or something.
Agreed.
So,
what do you
or even Burgundy to Picardy and Gascony to Burgundy or something. So you put two guys on Belgium for the fall. I understand the theory behind putting your units away from your Germans. You're trying to make feel better, but goodness. Now you got two units basically doing nothing except deterring eventual Italian invasion, but that's not happening anytime soon.
That also likely prevents Marseille from heading to Spain as well. If you want that next turn.
In fact, Marseille to Spain here would have been, I think, okay.
Yeah,
because it allows you to
in Marseille.
I mean, you'd rather have your fleet over there anyway. Fleet bottled up in Marseille is of limited utility in either direction.
And you're not even angering anybody in particular by putting it into Spain's south coast. It's not any more threatening, or at least not much more threatening for Italy than Fleet Marseille is. And it's so far away from England that England really should be fine, even in an EF, that you have a fleet in Spain's south coast. And I mean, obviously you stabbed England anyway, but just assuming that you would continue with an EF, I don't even think that this would have made much of a difference either. It
is interesting to see that we have three fleets simply holding here. 2 of them in dock, as well as Marseille. We've got St. Petersburg, North Coast, and Tyrrhenian Sea. At some point, you'd think that they're going to have to be useful. We were excited about this Fleet North Coast build from Russia, and they've not used it for anything.
Yeah, it's a bit hurting that has built that and not really used it much, instead of an army that could have achieved something.
I think this is also a display in using the seasons, the 2 parts of the year, to your advantage. Because if France had made this move in the fall, England would be building a defensive unit. So that's always worth bearing in mind. But not how you do something, but also when as well.
Totally, yeah.
Let's have a look at fall, or a retreat from England, pulling everything back.
Well, everything is fine, but you don't really have much of anything left. It's not covering London and losing Belgium to the combined attack. You pretty much have to cover London here. There's no reason for English Channel not to go to London in this situation. I understand the theory, you're going to get behind them, but you're going to get behind them and you're down to 2 centers.
It's not even like Eddie is giving you much. I mean, if it were an army in Eddie, you could at least make an argument, okay, then I have play on Liverpool next year, but what is a fleet in Edinburgh doing for you anyway? So I don't really understand it.
Now, Sweden supporting Denmark makes sense because he had switched sides.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Christopher Ward coming into Western Med already, which I was not expecting with the 2 units sitting there from France, honestly. Was not expecting that. I was expecting it at some point. I just wasn't expecting it right then. I understand the theory behind what you did, Wardy, because your work here is done in the East, and so it's now time to do something else, perhaps. Might have been the theory, or just play balance.
Well, I'm also concerned at this point that France's work might be done in the north. And where do they go next? Especially given they put that army all the way in Spain. It's not
certainly
really
leaving that fleet in Marseille was a fairly anti-Italian thing to do. That's why I said earlier, it gives you really no good options, except you're bottling it up in a way that's only harmful to the Italians.
Silesia offers a support for Austria, who ignores it and attacks them.
Yeah, this is what we figured might happen. Austria clearly sold something to Russia, but already this turn they are betraying them, stabbing them, if you can even call that, because they never really work together properly. So yeah, this is just devastating for R&T. Bulgaria gets piffed. They lose Romania. They lose Smyrna. Turkey is down to 1. Russia loses another one. Okay, they gain Sev, so they are net even, but their units are all over the place. They have very little unit coherency at all. So yeah, that is a big problem.
Yeah, I suppose from a Russian perspective, you've lost Romania, but at least you've got Sevastopol back.
I would have, if I were Russia, I would have seriously considered pulling that fleet off the board and rebuilding an army in Moscow, because it's fun to have a fleet in Black Sea, but you can't even pitch that much to AI because they are in such a strong position that, yeah, it's a little tricky to get Ankara if Russia and Turkey work together, but yeah, you actually need that unit to defend Sevastopol, Warsaw, these centers, because otherwise they will be gone very quickly. And I think your chances of surviving and defending well are just better when you have another army, whereas Black Sea is fun, but will probably not achieve that much, I think.
That all of that is true, and combined with the Russian fleet St. Pete that really has not been able to be used at all.
Yeah,
that build that wasn't Army Moscow earlier is really coming home to hurt George here.
Yeah, and this is now the classical Russian position you don't want to be in, where you have fleets on both sides and they are not really gaining anything. They're just stuck in place, but they are not able to defend the middle either. And when you have 5 centers as Russia and No, it's actually 6, but still, yeah. If you have 5, yeah, five centers and 3 fleets, you have so few armies that it will be almost impossible to defend your mainland in like Warsaw and Moscow.
You're really relegated to trying to make janissary offers to various people. Here, use my fleets.
Unfortunately, but yes, yeah.
All right, let's move forward.
So we have 2 for Austria, 2 for France, 1 for Italy, and 2 disbands for England.
Yeah.
I mean, what if you're England? What do you take off the board here?
Yeah, you're trying to figure out where you can survive. You don't really have help to help survive in England. There's no way to do that. So even if the Germans were going to help you do it, they're too far away to be a great help with the fleet in Kiel. That's assuming if. I mean, you got the Russians, but the Russians can only do so much, in the short term either. So I think you got to figure out where you can live, where you can try to live, which is probably try to live in Scandinavia with German help, but who knows?
I keep Denmark and North Sea here, I think, because at least there are 2 sort of plausible options. Either if France wants to stab Germany, maybe you can get some German centers with France and Russia's help together, or as David just said, survive in Scandinavia. English Channel Fleet now might be an option as well, but France is building 2. So even if Germany turns on France, it's probably unlikely that you're going to make it into any French centers.
And this is a scoring system which encourages eliminating smaller powers as well. Don't forget.
Yeah, so that makes it harder to pitch a janissary deal.
Not easy unless you're on the stalemate line somewhere.
Yep.
Okay. Well, he gets rid of North and Denmark. They're the 2 that you kept, right?
Well, because he can maybe try to. Oh, he is at 3 centers. I'm sorry, I had that wrong in my head. I thought he was going to be at 2 centers. But it doesn't matter. What he's decided to do is to try to take a stand in England itself or Great Britain itself. I know we call it England, and then there's Edinburgh and Clyde. So let's just say British. Let's just say Britain. He's trying to defend Britain.
At least while we're covering a UK tournament for once.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We all know that Cal Hammer, when he invented the game, should have called that Britain instead of England. We all know that.
And don't get me started on the Ottomans either. Okay. What are we expecting to see here? France has built, but now has Italian units coming their way. They need to keep Germany on side, but what can you offer Germany if you're France?
I think what you tell France is that AI is just getting too strong if they attack you. I think you cannot offer that much to Germany right now. You can sort of offer Eddie at some point or so, but I think what you're saying is, look, you can stab me here, you can attack me, probably you will take something off of me, but is that not the best recipe to stick AI so tightly together that they will never break up and just roll over the whole board? Now, if that's necessarily true, I don't know, it might also just cause one of the East to stab, but I think that's the line of argument I'm taking here anyway if I'm France.
You shouldn't need much argument. If the Germans attack France here, they are committing, as the Japanese say, seppuku. There's no way to survive in that situation unless something drastically changes diplomatically on the other side of the board. I mean, he's got Russians he's got to deal with, for God's sake. Maybe he can diplomatically change that around because of how bad the Russian position is. But I'm not sure the Russian move right here is not just to try to survive in Scandinavia and poke around in Berlin and stuff. He's got to worry about that.
I suppose the good thing for Germany is that he does have Denmark there, which is low-hanging fruit. It may take a little bit of unit discipline, shall we say. But
I would wait until the fall to do it because you want to get your armies in position and you want to bounce if you can. You want to go Skagerrak to North Sea to bounce it, to make sure the English are not going there. It just makes your situation a lot easier if there's no English fleet in the North Sea and after the spring turn. Well, we'll see.
Okay. Well, Skagerrak does go to North Sea, but Kiel goes to Denmark.
Well, he's made a deal with Russia, which is a great idea. I'm glad he was able to accomplish that. Or at least I think that's what that means.
At least Russia is getting something this way, right? They gotta turn these two fleets into something. They cannot defend much anyway, so might as well use them to get a build. England is almost dead anyway, so I like that.
Wardy getting Bernard to help him into the mid-Atlantic. That's pretty, as we might say. And you've set up a supported attack into Lyon for the fall, so that's fun.
That's I do like that that fleet Rome build when you're trying to just do that coastal crawl. I also get some help from Russia here. Not that it was required, but
yeah,
it's nice to see those red armies moving away from me.
And they like seeing you vacate Greece too.
Yeah, I'm glad I did, because Munich to Tyrolia would have left Venice exposed had I not have convoyed back. So
true.
Yeah, but this looks like very, very good AI cooperation, and it doesn't look at all like there is much tension between Gary and Wardy here. And yeah, that's often something we see in round one of tournaments, because often people want to sort of set the image, hey, I'm a good ally, I'm not a stabby person, I'm perfectly fine with taking a good score and my ally getting another good score. That can make, I think, especially in a face-to-face tournament, a big difference if people see in round one that you are reliable and that you are easy to work with and so on. So yeah, for the time being, it looks like this is what A and I are doing.
Yep. Let's go see what happens in the fall turn. Oh boy.
Austria supports themselves into Warsaw. Not much Russia could have done about that. And
it was a guess. It was a guess.
It was a guess, actually. They could have Warsaw.
Oh, yeah, right. They could have braced it. Yeah. I mean, Romania could have tapped Sevastopol, then it would have been a guarantee. But Romania supported, is it Armenia to Sevastopol, I suppose?
Yep.
And Black Sea, is that a... No, it's not a convoy. It's also Black Sea also did that. So interesting.
I think they're both supports.
Everybody wanted Turkey to survive, and Tadeo said, "I'm done with you guys."
Everybody except Turkey wanted Turkey to survive.
Totally.
But my eye is drawn to Holland convoying unopposed into Edinburgh. That is where my eye is drawn.
Yep.
Pretty tasty.
This is quite a turn for the Germans. Now you see the French going to Munich and Tyrol going to Munich. That's to make sure the Austrians don't slip in there. I think. I don't believe that means there's any tension there. I think that's just a defensive standoff.
In Munich, was that?
Yes. What did I say? I meant Munich.
Yeah.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. Bohemia just holding. It didn't join in the fun or add any support or anything like that. So
I mean, if Austria would have known of that, it would have been fun to support Burgundy into Munich, just to upset the balance a little bit, make your direct opponent, which is Germany, a little weaker, and the opponent of your ally, which is France, a little stronger. But yeah, hard to predict.
Yeah, and I will say, and I say this all the time, Bohemia holding is almost certainly wrong. Do something besides holding, unless you run out of time or something. I mean, there would be no reason not to, in this situation, support Tyrolia to Munich to get it out of your backyard. If you assume that there might be true that he's going to cover Munich, you actually want him to leave Tyrolia. Unless you've got a deal with the Germans and you're going to stab Chris here, maybe, in 1905. That would be the only reason why you wouldn't want the Germans to vacate Tyrolia.
So should I be worried here if you and me looking at this, you'd think, was that an accident, or was that is he up to something?
Well, actually, there's an argument that even if he's going to stab, he wants to be able to go to Tyrolia, not the Germans here. I don't know. If I were you, would I have been worried in this situation? It's always worrisome when your target is dead, and so which was Turkey, and now the decision that Austria has to make, and they had to cover Trieste because the Germans were in Tyrolia, so they couldn't be sure. So is there no cause for concern? There is some cause for concern, but the good news is he can't build fleet Trieste.
Yeah.
So that's the good news.
It's always good. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much as Italy here. I mean, there, as David pointed out, you should always worry a little, and you should always ask yourself, is there a good reason for my ally to stab me here? And what do I need to do to prevent it? But I think it's not a great position for Austria to stab. Yes, they might get, if they do it right, a bunch of centers. But once again, this balancing thing, and they have still targets left. Yes, Turkey is dead, but Sevastopol, Moscow, potentially Munich at some point. There is still stuff to do that Austria can do. And if Italy wants to go west and sort of lock horns with France, I'm more than happy to see that as Austria. I don't want to pull those fleets back just yet, I think.
It would be a premature stab, I think, with Russia still being as intact as it is.
Yeah, and looking for gains in the north.
True.
Trying to come around the top. We lose Turkey and we lose England as well here. So the 7th place in the rank to Turkey, the 6th place in the rank to England. Was there a path for them to get, if not a survival, then hang around a little longer than somebody else? It feels that they could have defended at least Edinburgh here, and Belgium, as it turned out, was open. I don't know. What do you think about the move?
I mean, there was always guesses. You know, he took a shot at London instead, thinking that the French might cover Edinburgh. I mean, there was just all guesses. So you can't really argue. You could argue maybe with some earlier moves of Bernard, but here is just guesses going wrong.
Yeah, and with a draw-sized portion of the scoring system, it's very hard if you don't have a solid Janissary deal, which none of them seem to have. It's just very, very hard to survive until the end. Even if Turkey takes that support into Sevastopol, yes, they might be useful for another turn or two, but I don't think they have much of a shot of actually surviving here. So
particularly not with the fleet.
Yes, absolutely.
No, yeah, you can't really retreat into Moscow, can you?
No.
Although it would have, had they have done so, that would have been 10 more points because of the rank. Their rank would have.
That's true. Yeah.
But right, let's have a look. We say goodbye to England and Turkey. We've got 1 each for Italy and Austria, and 2 builds for Germany. At what point are you thinking fleet? Would you be looking to build a German fleet here, Robert?
Yes. I think it's certainly there's an argument, because not only if you want to stab France at some point you need one, but I'm not even sure if that's in the cards here, because AI might be a bit too strong. But if you don't stab France, you might want to clear out Scandinavia, and in order to achieve that, another fleet is very helpful, especially because the French fleets are occupied in the southwest. They will not come up to help you there because they have their green own little problems to deal with. The big question is, do you have enough armies if you only build one army to hold the middle of the board? Or will you get into trouble? My intuition would be probably you do. If you build one army in Munich, you have one in Tyrolia and one in Ruhr as well. And these Austrian armies are still a bit occupied with Russia. So I think it's worth the risk. But if you want to be super safe and play it so slow, maybe 2 armies is better. But I think I would be tempted to build a fleet here.
Yeah, the issue is the Russians, I think. Putting aside the French for a minute, the issue is the fact that there's 2 Russian fleets. And what is going to be your relationship with Russia here? It could be friendly. It could be anti-Austrian, in which case the armies make a lot more sense. If it's not going to be that, if there's going to be some theory that I need to go get my pieces of Russia now, then you might want to build a fleet in Kiel and go to Baltic or something and get behind the Russians. So I think a lot of it depends on what your diplomatic situation with the Russians is. And I could see it going either way. You could make a deal with the Russians here. it's a little hard to see what the Russian fleets are going to do except attack France in that deal, unless they just go back to dry dock and stay there.
Yeah. Let's have a look. He's gone double army. That could be anti-Austrian, could be anti-Russian.
Correct. Although probably more likely to be anti-Austrian. Anti-Russian, it's like the only thing you can get to is Warsaw. That happens to be Austrian.
It's Austrian already, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just defending the middle of the board from what they're expecting an Austrian attack to be. Now, Wardy can't answer these questions. We don't even want Wardy to answer these questions. But the Venice to Tyrolia here and move your Austrian armies closer to the front, Galicia or whatever, would seem to be sensible if the AI is sticking together.
Yeah.
These moves would have made me, if I'm Chris, a little bit nervous.
Totally.
The way Trieste going to Tyrol. I'm sorry, Trieste not going to Tyrol. So this makes me a little nervous if I'm the Italians. We'll see. And as I say, we don't want Chris to tell us here because we want to enjoy watching this at face value or at real speed. The Germans redeploying to Baltic area is exactly what I was talking about. That's the alternative. If you're going to go after Russia, you don't necessarily need to build the fleet because you can still redeploy like you did here.
Yeah, that's an option as well. And nice tactics as far as I can see it quickly on France's part. They were always going to lose Spain here if Italy wanted it, but I think they should probably be able to take it back. They will have some guesses over some guesses over Portugal, but I think it gave them the best option of somehow defending with that annoying Italian fleet in Mao. So I like this moveset.
Yeah, we probably need to pick up the pace a little bit to get these games in. Let's see.
Great guess on Italy's part. So they don't only keep Spain, but they also piff that fleet in Portugal and take both Iberian centers. I don't know why Gascony held. It was probably one of those face-to-face things with like I forgot to enter an order. We were just talking about it. Makes no sense. So that is very unfortunate for France and great for Italy. And you know what else is great for Italy? No Austrian stab.
Yes.
Gian just goes back to Con. It could have been pretty devastating. I mean, okay, Piedmont sort of supported Venice, so that would have at least prevented Venice from happening, but they could have still walked into Smyrna and walked into Greece. Russia loses Sevastopol, but they get back into Warsaw. So there's just like a little bit of flip-flopping in the east. Austria not growing at this point, Italy picking up 2. So that's sort of what we've got happening in the east. And yeah,
if I recall, regarding France, I think there was a couple of written order mistakes here. I think, and this is something I do later on in the tournament, directing a unit from a province where it isn't.
Yeah.
So I think, for example, he ordered something for Army Yorkshire here.
Okay.
I don't remember what Gascony, the Gascony order was.
Yeah, we pointed out Matt is, I think, mainly a virtual player, or has been so far. So yeah, I think we all know that how that goes in your first face-to-face tournament. In my first face-to-face game I played, or like first tournament game, I ordered in Fall of 01 Ionian convoys Apulia to Naples instead of Apulia to Tunis, and didn't build anything in Italy in 01. So that happens very quickly, and I think it happens to everybody who's playing face-to-face for the first time in some form or shape.
It happened to Ash here by not ordering North Sea to Norway, unless this was all intentional somehow to keep the fleet in the North Sea because he was worried about Matt or wants to take a move against Matt eventually or something. Otherwise, there's no reason not to hit Norway to make sure you take Sweden.
Yeah, good point.
Yep.
Unless he thought it was going to do something else, like order to north or something. I don't recall.
Maybe, but even then, why not just order it in case? I mean,
Yeah.
let me say again for the 523rd time that I've ever said on one of these shows: don't hold. If you've got time to do anything else, and sometimes you don't, and that's fine. And there are a limited situation where hold doesn't hurt you because there was absolutely nothing it could do. I just don't think you should almost never hold. There'll be a game that we're covering later in this tournament where there is so much holding, it becomes the title of the game.
Hold on tight to your dream.
Okay, two for Italy, one for Russia.
It's amazing how Russia kept at 5 for such a long time. I mean, we were cursing them the whole game, but so far they've stuck around. So let's see.
Italy, Army Liverpool goes, which I think is probably right, and Army St. Petersburg. So we have that Russian army. I don't think we needed another fleet in St. Petersburg.
Please not. No, it looks very much like it's heading towards a 4-way draw, I think. I think Russia will be the one who will get squeezed out, and unless we see a sort of a realignment of alliances here, but we haven't seen it so far, and it would surprise me a little bit to see it from this point. Yeah. How do you like the Austrian orders, David?
There are situations diplomatically where you order holds to say, hey, look, I'm not threatening. Go kill people so we can end this game. It could be what that is. But in that situation, just have everything support everything. Just as a matter of principle. It may be principle and diplomacy don't mesh. But as a matter of principle,
doesn't give his soldiers days off.
This looks very much like Gary missed the time and ran to the board last second and just scribbled something down, which happened to be a self-bounce in Moscow, which did exactly nothing.
Well, it's that, or it really just is, I'm going to leave you alone so you can go kill the Russians, but why not help kill the Russians?
Maybe, but it's weird, especially in ranked
space. Plausible deniability, because Galicia doesn't offer support for that German move, and he's, it's only a self-bounce. It wasn't meant to do anything naughty against you. It just cuts the support.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes
which, by the way, this wasn't ordered because Moscow held.
But Austria's in second right now, and this is, as we said, a largely rank-based scoring system. So even if he says, "I'm happy with my 8 centers," you don't want Germany to surpass you. It just makes your score way worse when you're in third, or maybe even in fourth. I mean, fourth seems unlikely because France has very limited room to grow. It seems pretty stalemated in the West, but yeah.
Chris, do you remember this? I know you're going to forget things that happened yesterday, and this was not yesterday. Do you remember what Gary's deal was here?
At this point, we were discussing. AI was trying to turn Germany to try and get that 60 points shared between us, shared amongst a lower number of players.
All right, that's what I figured. Is this was a message to the Germans? I'm going to leave you alone. You go kill Russians.
Yeah,
but
I was trying to get them to go against France, probably first, as you might imagine, but they didn't want to do that yet. They've left themselves kind of open here to France.
Well, and the Russians could slip into Edinburgh too. We'll see what happens in the fall turn. Or they could take the North Sea, which is almost as bad.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good for Germany at all.
Although the Russians are in bad shape too, let's be honest. I mean, this is working in the sense that you needed to kill somebody to get those points out of the draw-based part of this.
Yeah. Austria takes Moscow. Germany has taken Warsaw. Italy and France just have not quite standing orders, but it seems unlikely that anything will change in that Marseille-Iberian area anytime soon. So, yep, it still looks a bit like we're going towards a 4-way draw, I think.
Yeah, sort of a cleanup turn. I guess we'll find out in 1907.
Yep. And I mean, I think, Wardy, you said the second round was played the same day as round one, right?
yes.
So that's always an argument as well. Getting a bit of a break, maybe not pushing it quite until 1909. Just saying, okay, let's finish Russia in the next year and finish 2 years early, so we can get lunch or a bit of a rest or like a break or something.
So I think this game started shortly after 11 a.m. And I think the second round was due to begin something like 6:30, if I recall.
Okay.
So maybe rather dinner than lunch, but still the same thing about.
The Russians are going to vacate, try to survive in England, it looks like.
Makes sense, I think.
Slash Britain. England/Britain.
Because the argument is France cannot really dedicate their fleets to kick them out of London or Liverpool or something, because the turn they do that, they will make themselves vulnerable towards Italy. And so I think it makes sense. I like this
if
pull.
your goal here is to make the draw, because you think, well, you're not going to climb up ranking, maybe. Yeah, you might do, but if that's your goal, then maybe this is a good play.
Arguably, you keep the army Norway instead of the fleet Norwegian, so that you can convoy the army onto the British island.
True.
Because the army could be possibly more likely to survive. But it's a quibble. It's a quibble. You could make an argument for this as well.
Yeah, actually, a convoy to Clyde would be pretty tasty.
Or convoy to Clyde, right? Yeah. Although I just like the idea of keeping the North Sea here, but whatever. So this is additional cleanup. The Germans are now moving back to make sure that the Russians can't get behind them anywhere.
Movement between France and Italy. Italy gets into Mao but gives up Spain, so this makes it a bit more dynamic. Let's see how this turns out.
Yep.
Ye of little faith.
Turns out very, very nicely for Italy. It gives them, they've pulled that fleet out of position. They can regain Spain. There was nothing France could have done about it. There was nothing France could have done about Marseille either, because Germany is moving towards Burgundy. It might be because they knew that Burgundy would go to Marseille, but actually that made it also impossible for France to hold Marseille, which is curious. So I'm halfway thinking, Belgium
maybe
and
France is going to get cut out here.
Yeah, this looks like maybe it's even heading towards a three-way draw. Russia is still sitting on 2, so yeah, that plan is working so far. But at least, I mean, it just makes little sense to go after France when you want to keep Russia alive, right? It seems like Russia will eventually be able, they should be able to eliminate Russia unless they run into time trouble, which could be the case.
Yeah, but this is sort of cleanup action here.
Yeah.
Given the scoring system involved, and that's
also
why we
just
can probably speed through it a little bit here until we get to a move where somebody does something unexpected.
So yeah, the question is, can they do it in 2 years? Right, we have this 1909 limit.
Yeah, penultimate year.
So,
but wait.
So yeah,
Gary Sturley, look at you, Gary Sturley.
This is my game. I don't care about the draw size, but I'm gonna be on top. Interesting. It's bold to do it in the spring because now he leaves himself with some guesses over Ankara Khan and Smyrna, but it could work out very, very well actually. He's on 10 centers already. Takes Warsaw, takes Smyrna, takes Greece. Let's see how it's going. Germany convoys into London. That's nice. So in fall, what do we got? Can Wardy guess right? No, that wasn't even much of a guess, I suppose. No. He can't.
Guess right in Armenia, for what it's worth.
That's Sturley takes Norway. I just want to point out.
Yes, an Austrian army in Norway. That is fun.
I won the first game of diplomacy I ever played because we were all learning the game, and the guy who was on the other side of the map, I was playing Italy, didn't realize that my army in St. Pete could go to Norway.
Oh,
So Norway was my 18th center as the Italians.
Oh,
wow.
But we were all learning. We were all stumbling around in the dark. So I don't think.
who were you?
What's that?
Was that as Austria?
As the Italians.
I was the Italian. Wow.
Yeah.
Italian, Norway. Gotta love it.
Italian army in Norway. But anyway, this is fascinating. Everything's coming up Stirly here.
Yeah, and Russia is still alive. I think they got into London, didn't they? Because Germany left. So they used to own Eddie and Liverpool. Now they own Liverpool and London. So they might actually make the draw.
So this may have been a comms issue on my front as well, because I'd recognized the stab from Gary the turn before. I thought Germany had noticed it too. Norway to Clyde suggests that maybe they hadn't noticed that is what was happening. But yeah, so is there a solo from here?
Not enough time.
Maybe, certainly not
1 year.
Not
certainly
enough
not
time.
1 year.
I still don't think there's
five
enough time.
builds from Austria. Only 3 centers open.
Unless +5 is glorious, but no solo unless somebody throws. And why would they?
Because he needs 4. So Sweden, Ankara.
No.
You know, timing is really important in diplomacy, regardless of the format. It's one of the more important things is a sense of timing. If you've got a year limited game like these are, timing is really everything towards the end. And Gary moving when he moved shows, I think, a good sense of timing.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to give himself 2 game years to solidify his position, and I think he's going to.
That's one to remember. The penultimate year in a time limited game is always a tricky one, and you should watch out. I think often we see stabs happening there.
Yes.
I thought I was safe because I thought, well, you know, he can take Ankara and Greece, and that's his board top. It doesn't benefit to go anymore. So I was still trying to go like, yeah, well done. Just allow us to after the spring stab. I thought, right, you do that, but let us eliminate France at least. So I failed in that diplomatic situation. It turns out, but
yeah, but it's true under this scoring system. It doesn't make any difference whether you are on 17 centers or 15 or 12, as long as you are in the lead. The only difference it makes is how many players did get eliminated. And yeah, unless if he solos, but yeah,
if he gets a solo. And the other thing is, put the scoring system aside just a minute. It's cool to get big.
Yeah. Well, I think that was what Gary's philosophy was.
Honestly, there are people that play that way, and they don't really pay attention very closely to the points of the scoring system. And those players that do pay attention to the scoring system need to realize when they're playing that there are people who couldn't give a flip about it.
Yeah, and it's worth bearing in mind. Gary knew he couldn't play in round 2.
Oh, okay.
And I think he thought, let's have a bit of fun more than anything else, and that's perfectly legitimate as well.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and it looks like France and Russia will survive. So good for them. We've got 1 move left, I think, and so they both make it into the draw. Partly because. So actually, another thing, like as we said, it might not be that Gary cared that much about his score, but it's not only that he didn't improve his score by getting more centers, he might have prevented Germany and Italy killing off, for example, France. So, but hey, if that was what he wanted, more power to him.
It's fun for us to see that kind of stab and that kind of move.
I mean, look at this whole red area in the eastern part of Europe. I think we haven't seen that since 1990 anymore, to see that much red.
Now, Gary Stirling, it's the last turn. There is absolutely no justification for you not taking Venice here. Absolutely.
Yeah, he noticed it afterwards. Yeah.
Take it with the fleet.
Yep.
Use Tyrolia to hit Piedmont. Come on, Gary. I thought you were good at this game.
And I think we only finished this with about 10 minutes to spare because we did truncate the turn lengths a little bit towards the end because there wasn't a central clock; it was just per board. And so this is how it finished: 15 centers,
Wow.
which isn't
Good job.
bad at all. If I can leave you to just discuss this game and how it went for a moment, I shall rejoin you in a jiff.
Absolutely.
I think in Britain they would say "well challenged," Shirley, because
Yeah.
that was just the timing of the stab was great. The fact that Wardy was not able to see it was probably at least partially due to Gary's good diplomacy.
Totally. Very impressive game. I totally agree. And 82 points. We will have to see what this does in this tournament to him. Very good round one anyway. And actually also a nice comeback for Germany. 72 points. For a while, it didn't really look like they would be able to get second place. This way, this is probably a very decent score as well, I would think. So...
Well, and as we were pointing out earlier, you can see that the difference in score is not dramatic between Gary and Ash because they did not kill those players off. The scores weren't as high as they could have been. And even if they had been, the difference wouldn't have been that high because that's just not how this particular system works. We're sort of used in the last couple of years to seeing systems that are lead based, gap based systems, where the more that you separate yourself from number two, the bigger results you get. And that's just not the way many other systems, particularly older systems, work.
Yep. Agreed. All right. That was a fun game.
Anybody want to
yeah, it was fun to play. That was my first ever face-to-face game.
Was that really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a bit of a baptism with fire, and I was pleased for the first 7 years how it went. Anyway,
I mean, you didn't move on that much.
Before we go to game two,
yeah.
Why did Brandon show David how to operate these things?
I'm like an 11-year-old boy here. I'm going to keep pushing buttons, and because they go. Wee!
Well, I'm afraid I was regret in bringing this up anyway. So let me have another go at that.
Wait, you wanted me to push the button again? Is that what you just
said? No. It's fine.
Well, we'll probably have to move a little faster through some of the other games, but that one was worth spending some time on just to watch.
Yeah, it was
how that 15 center, which should have been a 16 center top, Gary, how that thing came about was fun to watch and very instructive to people playing Austria that may realize now I'm playing Austria, so I can get sort of big, but I can't get really big because I don't have any fleet power. Not true. Particularly if you could slip into Norway and hold it, which he did.
So how about, to speed it up a little bit, we do like turns? David, you take spring turns and I take falls or something? Is that maybe a good idea?
It's fine by me. Because we will have to speed this up a little bit on some of these other games.
I'm having a little technical issue trying to get the game up.
So if I can make just one more comment to tease David a little bit, do you know how many points it would have made the difference between 15 and 16 centers?
0. But you would have had less criticism from me, and isn't that the most important thing?
Yes. Everybody in this whole world wakes up in the morning and thinks, how can I get the least criticism by David Hood today? How can I make David happy?
I know I do.
Robert, it's not everybody in the world, but it should be.
Well, yep, probably.
Okay. I've sorted out my problem this end, and here we go. Here's the playlist for round one, board 2. In Austria, we have Ian Wilson from Swindon. In England, we have Matt Smith visiting from Sweden. In France, we have Greg Mostyn from Flintshire. That's in Wales for for my non-British friends here. In Germany, we have Bradley Grace, whoever that is, from Warrington. In Italy, we have Lauren Lloyd from, it says Glasgow, I'm pretty sure that's Ayrshire in Scotland. In Russia, we have Gunther Bedson from Telford. And in Turkey, we have Theo Cox Dodgson from Leeds, as I like to pronounce it. Any of these bring back any memories?
Well, Gunther is a longtime player in the hobby, and has played face to face in UK events in the past for sure, and I think on the continent as well.
Yeah, and I think Bradley played quite a bit of the virtual games this year already. I think he's not super, not a long time player. I think he has started fairly recently, but he's played a lot lately, and I think he's had some good success in some of the leagues, if I remember correctly. I don't know if it was Tour of Britain and or VDL, but at least in one of the two, I think he's doing very decently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I can do that directly. There we go. I've learned something. Okay, then. Right, I will try and go a little bit quicker this time around. And so who's going first? Shall we go, David?
I will spring into it and let Robert fall, is what I will do.
Very good.
All right, so I'm looking at the French opening that sort of runs away from everybody else. I've said in past shows that can be actually a way to do triples, because you can put your two armies in Iberia and put your fleet in the Western Med in the fall. In the old days, that's what we used to do in a Western triple. That's what French moves are. We'll see if that's what happens here. Galicia being left open by the Austrians so that the Russians, Gunther goes right in there, is also a thing that jumps out at me. The Turkish opening used to be more common than it is nowadays, but that used to be probably the most common Turkish opening, and you still see it a fair amount. What you don't see very much is what Lauren did here, which is put the army in Tuscany. That is a sort of a radical, I am not threatening anybody and I am completely defensive kind of opening. But, probably doesn't matter in the long run if you weren't planning to do anything in 1901, because you can still convoy to Tunis from here and cover Venice. So it's almost the same thing as holding in Venice, but it is unusual.
Might be the message to Austria, who felt the need to cover Trieste with Venice, with Vienna, and at the cost of Galicia being now occupied by a Russian army.
Yep.
And Robert, what do you see?
There it goes, back to Venice, convoy to Tunis. I mean, it's not that bad for Turkey, but they seem to have NMR'd. Probably they would have bounced Black Sea. I can only suppose if they had gotten orders in. The rest probably doesn't change much at all, because Austria supports themselves into Greece. Russia takes Romania. This is still a very decent position from which you can run an RT, being in Galicia. And I know that David is a big fan of putting some fleet into Black Sea, or like killing it, making it somehow useful when there is an RT brewing. And I tend to agree. I think Turkey shouldn't be too worried about a Russian fleet in the Black Sea if they want to do a good RT juggernaut alliance. And in the West, we see some wackiness, just convoying Gascony to Portugal and Spain to Moscow, because, like, why not? It's not really doing much, but it's fun. England tries to convoy into Belgium. Germany says, nope, you're not going there. So it doesn't look too triple-ish. I mean, they still could do, but probably like an English convoy into Norway and then a fleet into Barents would have been the better option, and bounce in Sweden. So it looks more like potentially France and Germany could be an alliance we're looking at, especially if France builds another fleet in Brest. Then they've got two on the English Channel, and this fleet in Mao is still useful. I mean, that's probably the main benefit of putting the two armies into Iberia if you don't push it into the Med, that you keep it in Mao, which is one step closer to England compared to Spain or Portugal. So that's I think what we're looking at
Belgium could be arranged, I suppose. Let's not rule that out. But
potentially, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen two armies in Iberia in 401 before.
I have seen, like I said, I've seen it before, but it is unusual. It's certainly unusual in modern play, I think.
I think it's just too common these days to cover Burgundy somehow. I think, at least in virtual, we see most French players either put one army or even two on Burgundy, and that just makes it impossible to put both of them into Iberia and fall.
I was going to make one comment about the potential for RT cooperation going forward. It's not the Russian fleet in the Black Sea that's the problem with the RT. It's the fact that the Turkish fleet is stuck in Ankara. So it can't really do anything. So that's where the NMR hurts the RT potential, really, is the fact that now Turkish offensive potential has really been hamstrung.
But this is really more a result of this more classical opening than the NMR, because putting Con back into Smyrna and Ankara into Con doesn't help you much either, because then you can't build another fleet in Smyrna, so it's not much better. You still have only one fleet onto the Med. I just think that this Smyrna to Con opening is not the most RT friendly, but yeah,
I mean, it could have been but I agree. It's not real friendly. I mean, I agree with you.
All right, let's see some builds. What do we get? Okay. Fleet Marseille is interesting after keeping the fleet in Mao, but I guess it's a bit befuddling, because the French armies are so far away from Germany. It looks like they are still pitching a triple somehow, I would think, because it makes no sense to attack England from this position, nor Germany really, if you put the army into Brest and your other armies are in Iberia. Looks like Greg is just continuing this. Nope, I'm not attacking you, neither England nor Germany. Look, I've got my hands behind my back. I'm not doing anything.
There are people who intentionally play slow / defensive / I am nowhere near you, and they use that as their diplomatic leverage. There are good players that do that as well. I don't know Greg. He may also be doing this very intentionally, but there are players who do this very intentionally. It's not my style, but it is a style that can work.
Yep.
You don't strike me as the aggressive type socially, David. Maybe just on a diplomacy board.
I am a Care Bear in every aspect of my life. Well, here we go. This is a triple move. That's exactly what it is.
Although Munich hold.
I was talking about the French move.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you're going to go to the to the Western Mid Lyon right now, you are making a I am part of a triple move. Either that, or you are making, or it's a solo attack on Italy. Without a physical triple, but the Germans are actually supposed to get Holland and Belgium under a triple.
Yeah.
Now, you're right that the English should have, if they were really going to do this, you convoy to Norway, because it gives you the option to go to Finland. But this is also an option you can do, which is do the fleet rearrangements like this. I think I still would have put the army in Norway here if I was going to continue this triple, but we'll see. In the East, the Turks really do now have to do the switcheroo because of the reason we said earlier. But otherwise, it certainly looks like RT, doesn't it?
That would have been upset by just Greece to Aegean.
Greece to Aegean, yeah.
Would have really scuppered Turkey.
That would have been devastating for Turkey. And if I'm Russia here, we've talked about not holding units before. Please self-bounce in Norway. Like, there's no reason against it. Even if you don't want to upset England. If England is telling you, I'm friendly with you, I'm not attacking you, just say, okay, sure, I'm self-bouncing in Norway. That's all I'm doing. It doesn't hurt them at all. And then you prevent North Sea from Norway from happening, and you are in a way better position, actually.
And just to follow up on that, that's absolutely right. And if you're Austria, why not just order Serbia supports Greece? You don't know for sure that the Italians and the Turks are not together. You don't think so, but what would be the harm in doing it? There's no harm in doing it.
Yep, totally. Right, let's see what's happening. So, some weird Russian moves. Galicia holds, Romania holds, even though it has a support order from Bohemia. So they essentially muck their orders for all of their armies in the south.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate because they could have taken Vienna if Galicia, I mean, Bohemia supporting Romania into Budapest doesn't make sense anyway. But if Bohemia had tapped Vienna and Galicia had supported it, they could have gotten it. Now, at least Turkey makes. They don't really make progress. They exchange Greece for Bulgaria. Italy goes back, so they realize that France is coming. So that is not good for Austria because they are facing RT cooperation, and their only friend has sort of run back and is not going to be able to support them by much. France is taking this triple very seriously, and they do the John Jameson move to convoy to North Africa. Not the biggest fan of that, but I mean, at least it gives you one additional unit on Tunis if you only have 2 fleets for now, and they don't get a build this year, so it makes sort of sense in this position. Germany goes up to 7, Sweden and Belgium. It's an interesting question. Some people argue that Germany should actually get these 7 very quickly in a triple, even though it puts them like 2 ahead of both of their allies right now, but it might not be unreasonable in a triple because we all know Germany is the vulnerable one in a Western triple. So yeah, at least they get 2 builds now, and that can be very, very helpful. And the East need to figure something out soon, otherwise they will get crushed, I fear.
Yeah, the only good thing about Gunter totally whiffing is that maybe he and Austria can now work together against the coming. If the Germans are coming, who knows what they're getting ready to do. But if they're coming, that would give him somebody to work with. I love John Jameson. John Jameson's a friend of mine. Convoy the army to North Africa here, as opposed to supporting yourself into Tyrrhenian. I just don't know about that.
Yeah.
But Piedmont's not a bad place to have an army.
I agree, but you could still order that. I don't know. We'll see how this is not terrible at all. I mean, he's got good position here against Lawrence. So it's not terrible or anything. It's just armies in Africa are not great. The Italians sometimes have to do that. Other people sometimes have to do that. But unless you have to do it, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess Lauren was anticipating perhaps a convoy here to Tuscany.
Correct.
That would have looked great had that happened and it held like that. But
that would have been a boss move just to hold there.
Yeah. Right, 2 up for Germany, 2 down for Russia, and Austria and England have 1 each. Ooh, now Fleet London and double army from Germany. This feels like France is about to get kicked.
Yeah, at least
the Austrians have failed to build, probably not on purpose.
Oh gosh,
I wouldn't think so. That hurts. That can really, really hurt them. That can actually end their game probably next year. Not like that they are out of the game, but effectively, I think. If RT continues attacking them, which they might not, as we pointed out, but it's...
Well, with the Russians removing 2 of their anti-Austrian units, it might not be so bad. I mean, they've kept Skagerrak, for example.
Yeah, that's the only silver lining for Austria here.
Now, I wasn't on this game, and I don't know what happened here. People stayed at the table and were able to negotiate during build and retreats.
That's an important consideration.
Now that,
but they had to do it in public. They had to do it in public.
Yes. That could have been ask of a wave. I guess it's unlikely down to time because you're there. So I'm guessing it is. Perhaps they miswrote the name of the province or something. I don't know.
I think the most likely thing is that they didn't remember that they had a PIF. That is something that happened to me in my first face-to-face game as well, because they didn't gain a center. You write down on how many centers are the powers, and okay, Austria was on 5, they are still on 5, and so they didn't remember that they lost that fleet. I think it was already in spring, which is a while back at this point. So I think that's probably the most likely theory what happened, and they didn't realize that they have a build.
Now, in North American tournaments, it's traditional to go through in front of everybody and say that 5 up 1, at 6 down 1, whatever. And so you say that out loud with everybody listening. So it's less likely for you to miss a build, but it's not unheard of that it still happens, and it's not unheard of for that not to be the practice. in a
Yeah,
face-to-face
especially if it just reads Austria even on 5. Sometimes people do like a little star, an asterisk to mark that they waved something, or that they got a. I mean, no, it wasn't even a wave, so the pit will not be marked. So
Yeah, there wouldn't even be a mark. I think it would stay put.
Right. So yeah, that's quite possible.
We get a little spoiled here on this interface, seeing the pluses and the minuses, but we're not seeing that face to face.
True.
No.
Totally.
Although they were sandbox live, or at least most of the games were. So certainly on my board, I was chirping up if something had been adjudicated incorrectly or something.
Okay.
France really wants to go to Moscow.
Yeah. I mean, assuming if you assume that the Italians are going to go cover Venice, why not just order to Tuscany? I don't think being in Piedmont helps you very much. But let's not quibble on these moves. The French are still coming. They're taking Tunis. The question here is, what is the rest of the East going to do? Are the Turks going to be part of the solution or part of the problem? Because when you're facing, if you're facing a Western triple, which apparently you might not be now, look at the English move. But if you're not sure what's happening, do you go try to kill Turkish units? He loses Greece and doesn't retreat to Serbia, so that appears to be a deal.
I think
that's a thing you can do is just have 4 people try to cooperate and try to stop whatever's happening. But
most likely
to ready to get cut out. So
it's very possible that Austria will move out and fall again, so Turkey can build another fleet. Or actually, they think that Austria needs an additional build. But hey, guess what? Austria still has one in pocket, so probably the fleet is the more sensible option here.
And it looks like Austria and Russia have
made up
some sort of agreement.
Yeah.
Well, and that started with the 2 Russian disbands. I've disbanded these. We're going to make a deal now.
Was it Black Sea and Bohemia?
Actually, now that they see that it's sort of an EG and not a Western triple anymore, even if that might have been the intention, I could well imagine Austria saying, guess what, Turkey, I'm just going to move Greece to Bulgaria, Albania to Greece or something, or support hold myself in Greece. Nope, we don't need you anymore that badly. France is likely screwed anyway. So...
Well, there's all sorts of possibilities now for the fall turn, given the fact that you've got the move in English and the Germans in Burgundy. I was going to diplomatically change everything. Going to take the pieces and go whoop, see where they fall back down for fall 1903.
Just one little detail here. I would have loved if they had trapped that French army. It looks like they had a bounce or something agreed in Belgium. If they had let that French army walk into Belgium, that would have been so good. They would have gotten Paris and Brest, and they could have easily kicked it out in fall, but maybe they didn't know that this was happening.
I don't know, but that's an excellent point. Sometimes you actually want to let somebody come to something of yours in the spring because it puts them completely out of position. There's an old saying in diplomacy, spring turns are about position. Fall turns are about centers.
Yes.
This could be a rat, I wonder. They could turn this into a rat in the East.
Possible as well, yeah.
Oh, or not.
Yeah, or it could just be a juggernaut. I mean, Turkey takes Bulgaria. It looks like they were afraid that Austria was not going to move out of Greece, which they didn't. Maybe it wasn't ever agreed, but it doesn't look like it's very friendly between Austria and Russia, Turkey on the other side. AI seem to cooperate a little bit. France pulls back the best they can. They still get an English army into Brest, which is a problem. At least they don't have to pull anything because they get Tunis. And that's about all we've got for this turn, I think.
The only other comment, I'm sorry. The only other comment I would make about Theo's moves are, if that is anti-Austrian, and it might not be, he may not think that Russia is attacking Austria here. I don't know. Why would you not take a shot at Greece and move to Bulgaria? Because they can't cover both of those things, and they might cover neither, which is what they did. And then you would have held Greece and taken Bulgaria. You know what I mean? If you're going to attack for real. But that just make me wonder if this is not a real attack. It was always a deal that he was going to get Bulgaria here.
Maybe it's a little fishy, but we'll see.
Plus, I just don't like holds.
think our
Yeah,
audience will have figured by now.
Yep.
All right. An army that is certainly not very anti-Italian, but rather anti-Austrian.
Yep.
Armies, yeah. Juggernaut, I guess.
Well, I
And
don't know how happy I'd be to see Army Sev if I were Turkey.
true, but it's better than Fleet Sev, I would say.
Well, it almost had to be Army Sev because you got to come into Romania. Well, you don't have to, but if you're going to use good unit efficiency,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about Moscow because there's not even an English army or anywhere near you.
Could
So-
just as easily go to Armenia, though.
I guess.
You can always hold con if you're very suspicious.
Maybe I'm just paranoid. Maybe this.
I don't know. It's not like you just got stabbed or anything.
Yeah. Wardy, does it still hurt, you know?
All right, Spring 1904. What do
he's
you
too
have
young.
for us? What do you have for store for us, Spring 1904?
You can get therapy, Wardy, you know? It's possible.
Wow.
So,
Well,
Spring,
we
that's
could get
your
Greece now.
territory, David.
This is good unit efficiency from the Russians, which is what I was saying earlier. That every single one of those units is doing something entirely productive. Because you weren't sure if the Germans were coming, so you really needed to be able to hold Warsaw if you had to. But that's just really awesome. RT is rolling. The Italians, instead of turning around to do anything about it, are saying, "Hey, France, you know, I've had enough of you. You came after me. I'm going to get my pieces back from whatever. Take Marseille, set up to take Tunis in the fall. Otherwise, it's continued EG cooperation, and not a move against the Russians by the Germans and the English."
Yep. Absolutely. Russia's having a party with that conga line.
Let's see what it does next. It just stays where it is. The Conga stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. Make sure that they don't lose anything. I'm not quite sure about Ukraine. Probably it was some sort of a sign towards Germany. I'm pretty sure that there will have been talks about that. Doesn't make that much else sense when you're getting a build.
Yeah, build in Warsaw if he.
Yeah, true, maybe. Turkey just goes for position. They figure that they are not going to get Naples, take the Adriatic and Ionian. This is looking amazing for the RT. However, EG is doing very well too. I mean, they get into Paris, so Germany gets their piece of France as well. Italy makes a deal with France, ports them out of Portugal into Mao. So France takes whatever help they can get. And yeah, they still lose Marseille. But at least
like France was expecting an attack upon mid-Atlantic here. Otherwise,
yep,
tap the channel.
Yep, this is very likely what they thought. Now they are in North Atlantic, which might be fun, but it's a little out of position. So let's see if they keep that unit. They have to pull one. Difficult position for France. They look like they are caught between the fronts. We have sort of 3 two-way alliances, it seems, and Italy, France is by far the weakest one of the 3, with Austria being sort of left alone.
Yeah, Lauren did not have great choices to make here, but the choice that she has made doesn't look good for any kind of long-term survival.
Yeah,
not taking Tunis. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who should have Serbia in this scenario?
The Turks eventually should have Serbia if the alliance is going to stick. Probably. But it really depends here. Where the Russians are out of the north entirely, you can make an argument that they need to have a sort of overcompensate.
Yeah. I think in this case, with this particular position, it would be unfair in terms of balancing for Turkey to have Serbia right here. I think it would give Turkey way more power than Russia. Turkey usually is in a stronger position to take centers in the end anyway. So if Russia is at, 2, 4, 6, and Turkey is at 5, it's perfectly fine that Russia has this positional benefit of having Serbia. I think 1 ahead in an RT is not much at all.
Yeah, I was really talking about more in the long term. Once you clean out Vienna and Trieste, who's supposed to own Serbia going forward? Probably the Turks, but it really does depend on the situation.
Yep. Maybe if Russia has gotten Vienna and something else, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Germany in the lead. Still build an army. Okay. Fleet build in Smyrna, army in Warsaw. Looks RT is good.
Army Venice, is that presumably that's there to help Austria?
Yeah. And prevent Turkey from slipping in because they are an Adriatic. They could even convoy an army there from Greece if they wanted to, if they were unopposed.
True.
Okay.
All right, spring. Do we still have EG? We do, although, gosh, I really love the fact that Burgundy and Paris held and didn't do anything more creative. I love that. Look at the French going to Norwegian. The French are they're going around. They're interested. They're doing what they can to try to survive in the long term, which is
government in exile hopes.
Well, and the reason they can get away with it, well, they can't get away with it in the long run, but because Portugal's now gone, assuming the English take it. Well, let's look at at the east. So progress, this is what I was saying earlier. So Serbia going forward means the Turks backfill into Serbia. That makes some sense.
And Russia is getting great.
I think I would have gone ahead and gone to Albania there and go Bulgaria to Serbia just to cut off the Austrians entirely and force them to go away. It's just kind of a tempo issue.
The fact that Turkey preferred supporting themselves there shows that there's not total trust between RT. They are working very well together, but Theo is clearly a bit suspicious of Günther here. Which makes sense.
Theo is setting up something. I don't know.
Also, that is possible, yeah.
Yeah, a lot more activity in the east than in the west.
Germany getting into Tyrolia is not irrelevant.
Yeah, true.
They're coming. They're coming for somebody.
Yeah, but Germany got to do something here. I mean, yeah, they are in the lead, but they are not going to keep that lead if they're just sitting on these 8. I agree. They should have taken Gascony here or something.
You mean the holding was a bad idea? I think you're right.
Yeah, somebody talked about that, I think, already. And yeah, I guess that
we don't even
might know a little something about this game, has played it for a year or two, I think.
There's a lot of trust here between England and Germany. The North Sea is wide open, and not even a bounce in Norway, and not even a hold support on Paris. So
why?
Well, let's see what happens in the fall.
All right, Russia. So was nice knowing you, Ian. Goodbye. Russia takes Vienna and Trieste. Yeah, sure. If Russia has these two, it's not unreasonable for Turkey to have Serbia. Absolutely. Apart from that, Italy can defend by a self-bound, so Turkey doesn't really progress against Italy, but they get a build from Serbia. EG is still solid. There's a nice little unwanted support, presumably unwanted by France, because Germany and England have bounced in Norway to keep them out of there. And this is probably France with their dying breath saying, I'm going to curse you. I'm going to screw you over just a little bit by this. It would have been way better if for some reason Kiel had held and Germany couldn't have built. Now, okay, England has to pull one. It shouldn't be, because France has to pull everything. It shouldn't be much of a problem to pull, let's say, Liverpool or something. Or even Brest if they trust Germany a lot. So, yep, we've got more of the same. RT with blah, 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 blah. RT versus EG. Looks like we're heading towards a 4-way draw once again, but we got to see if they finish the job.
Great read here in Iberia from Italy. I mean, they could have organised, if they were being nice, a bounce in Spain with France, but to keep France alive. But that's nice. France has kept Marseille green for them.
And the interesting thing is Lauren can't actually build the 2 builds that she's getting. She can only build one of them.
This is really unusual in this position. Italy is that much on the ropes that they can't build because they don't have, not because they don't own home centers, but they're just all occupied.
It's an army and one in the pocket. We say goodbye to Austria and France. So Austria 7th, and France in 6th. Well, it looks like RT is going to stick together.
Yeah.
You know how we had that game, the last game, where Russia had a bunch of fleets that couldn't coordinate. In this game, we've got a bunch of armies who can coordinate.
Yes.
Look at this like
The
bag
flip
of marbles there.
And here they come.
Yes.
Now, in the short term, what can they do? I don't know, but in the long term, they can get some good position on the line, and then the question is going to be: will the Germans be able to hold it, or will the English get tempted somehow? English are in Western Med. English are in Spain, so they're coming too.
Yep.
Hmm.
So RT is doing great, but it might be that Italy is just more annoyed at them than at EG, and so maybe more of the Italian centers will fall to England than to either R or T.
There were some unit efficiency issues with the Turks, so I've already pointed them out. There were some moves they could have made. We didn't talk about this, but the last turn where they tried to slip into Tyrrhenian, that was almost certainly not going to work. Apulia would have been better move even for the fleet. But now they finally get into Apulia with the army, so we'll see how it goes.
You've got to watch Bradley Grace, folks. I believe Burgundy was supposed to backfill Belgium here. And it ordered to Holland.
Holland and Belgium, yeah.
That is an honest mistake.
It could be. It's it's hard to write the correct province sometimes. We have the convoy to Apulia.
All right. No mischief on Germany's part. I mean, Holland goes back to Belgium because they had to cover it from, I don't know what, deep ones coming from the sea or something. But apart from that, Germany goes into Prussia. Russia takes Venice. Turkey tries to take Naples and they don't get it. So yeah, nice position for Russia. England pushes forward into Tyrrhenian Sea. They get 2 builds. Actually, they regain Norway, which they were sort of robbed of by that French unwanted support the year before, and they get Spain. Yeah, looks like more cleanup. Let's kill Italy.
So
and
England's getting Norway here, and Russia is getting Venice.
Yeah,
Yes, they did take Venice. Yep.
So the interesting question is going to be who will be on top, because we pointed out earlier that this system doesn't allow for shared board tops. So will Germany just maintain their lead just because they have said that early that, hey, I'm the leader, so it makes sense. Why should I give up the lead? It's always easier to argue with your ally like, hey, I'm in the lead already. I don't want to stand. I don't want to just give up the lead either. It's always way easier than arguing, hey, we are exactly at the same center count. I should be in front and you shouldn't be. So maybe.
And we don't know how much Matt or even Bradley is. Well, Bradley, having played a lot lately, probably is on top of the scoring system. We don't know whether Matt's paying attention to that or not, or A, paying attention to what it actually is, or B, cares.
True. I mean, I just like to talk a lot about scoring systems and this tournament structure. That doesn't mean that everybody does.
Well, for all I know, Bradley's very paying attention to the scoring system.
Well, it looks like he has. Now, I didn't know it was going to end at this point, but because I've not seen this game back, but I had heard.
And here it makes a big difference, this countback thing, because 888, that would be a very, very mediocre score for 3 of them in many scoring systems. Right here, it's actually 82 points, exactly the score that Austria had in round 1 with, what was it, 15 centers, 14 centers. So yeah, I love that. If I'm Germany, I'd take this draw any minute. I mean, yeah, you could maybe wiggle out Italy, but still, I mean, then if you do that, there's always the possibility that one of the other powers will surpass you and you will not take the board top. So makes sense from Bradley's point of view. I'm not sure if it makes that much sense from the other's point of view, but once again, maybe they don't.
It was exactly what was just being said about Bradley being on top of the scoring system. And I think I didn't know it was going to end at this point. But what I had heard from the game was that Bradley had agreed, or he'd been approached about a 3-way.
Oh,
and he, knowing that he would be the beneficiary of that. Agreed.
I
So
see.
you
Yeah.
be
Okay.
happy about this.
Now, I
one.
will
So-
say, that would have meant a lot more if the point differential is a lot more. It still means something. Don't get me wrong. It definitely means something for Bradley going forward. But at least if you're Gunter, it's a 10-point differential. It's not a 30-point differential or something like it might have been under some other scoring systems. So I'm not saying he did this on purpose. I'm just saying going into the next round, at least he's not so far behind. It's a little bit more like Carnage scoring, where the difference between first and second is basically 1. And the difference between second and third is basically another 1. It's not drastically different from topping versus coming in second.
You should also keep in mind that also under Carnage, you have this thing that you have very much categories. And once you are in this upper category, everybody else you have to fail to get another board top so that anybody can catch up, just because these categories are so separate that a huge board top cannot just even out a mediocre first round score. So sometimes it makes a bigger difference than it might appear if you just look at the percentages of how big the difference is in terms of the numbers. But we will see. I've never seen a tournament play this with this scoring system before. I think you said it's new, Wardy, so who knows how it will play out.
Fun game, though.
Yeah.
So that puts Bradley and Gary at the top.
With Gary knowing that he can't play round 2. So it really puts Bradley at the top because this is a no-drop round tournament.
Yes.
So having a 0 from round 2 does not going to be good for Gary's chances for doing anything significant on coming in first.
That's true, but you can hold that thought. Okay, hopefully I'll be ready for your jingleton now if we go to the next game.
We're not only ready for it,
ready.
We are desperate for it.
It works. Excellent. Good teamwork. And these are the players for this is the Saturday evening round, Spirecon round 2. Board 1, this one. And I believe one of you two have looked at that previously. Okay, smash it.
Yes, it's me. I'm going to do sort of a summary view of this game just in the interest of time.
So in this game, we have in Austria, Matt Smith, England, Matt Lynch, in France, Bradley Grace, in Germany, Moi, in Italy, Ash Field, in Russia, Theo Cox Dodgson, and in Turkey, Bernard Andrio.
And of course, the obvious point here is that Bradley sharing the lead coming in, how is that going to affect how he is seen by other players? I will tell you that the theme of this game is he who hesitates is lost. He who holds is really lost.
Oh dear.
So let's see what happens in spring 1901. I would argue not a lot to write home about here, except I just wanted to point out that the Turkish opening where they go to Armenia with the full bore attack, or at least theoretical attack on the Russians, is really the only thing that stands out to me in spring 1901. I think the interesting thing has happened in the fall. So fall 1901, we've got yet another game in this tournament where the Turks go to Romania in this situation. Sort of the same situation. In fact, I think the exact same moves where the Turks in the game 1 attacked and then the Russians reacted in this way. Here they are again. The big difference here is that the Austrians and the Italians bounce in Trieste. Was it on purpose? I don't know, but the Apulia army did not convoy to Tunis. That might tell us something about what the Italians' position is vis-a-vis the Austrians. And we've got what I call the bouncy bounce in Belgium, where you've got the three-way bounce, because that is the deal that has been struck, which is not much of a deal. But why is Kiel, Wardy? Do you have something against the Dutch? Or you love the Dutch so much you didn't want to go there? What?
I did. I wanted to go there, and I really wanted to go there from Berlin. So I wrote, my order was Army Berlin to Holland?
Honestly, it happens to the best of us. So I don't think that's worth any further consideration, except that in the winter 1901 situation, you've got what I would argue is an out of position Turk. You've got a little bit unclear what the AI relationship is, and you've got only one build for the Germans. We'll see if that's harmful to the German position or not as we go into spring 1902. I don't think the builds are particularly noteworthy either. All right, so spring 1902, which way is England going to commit? He tries to commit against Germany, against Wardy here. Or at least tries to make it look like that. And, the French, what are they doing? A little unclear. But the other person who has committed this turn is Ashe, playing the Italians, who has committed to the West. So if there was a concern between A and I, that concern, if there was one, that concern has gone away. And now the Italians are more concerned about slowing the French down. Let's go to fall 1902. Matt, my friend, my Irish bud, I am assuming, for the sake of argument, that this was just not getting orders into the box, which also happens in face-to-face sometimes. People sometimes think they've put orders in. Sometimes somebody has to leave. There's some kind of personal issue. So I don't know exactly what, and maybe you do, Wardy, because you remember this game. You played it.
I think this was deliberate. I think.
Well, if it's deliberate, then I would say you might need to deliberate a little bit more, Matt, on what moves are, because 4 holds, unless you were making some kind of protest statement or something, really doesn't do a whole lot for you. What have we got in the East, though? We finally got a little bit more definition about the East here in the fall, because we've got sort of an AT, maybe, where you've got the Italians going to Sèvres and the Austrians hitting Ukraine and going Budapest to Galicia, and probably moving Serbia to Bulgaria just in case Ukraine moved there and they weren't really sure, or making sure they can cover Romania while the Turks got Bulgaria. So I don't know. It looks a little bit like a little bit of a proto-AT alliance here in fall 1902. So let's move on to the builds. Germany actually builds another unit. Look at you with your fancy army Berlin.
Yoo-hoo.
And the Italians building 2 armies is not great news for an RT, but it's not completely impossible that you are leaving the Italians alone and you're just going to send your armies into Russia. It's not a very good long-term strategy, but in the short term, it could be. We'll see what happens in 1903. Let's see how dynamic the Western position is in 1903. Wait a minute. Hold. I see 5 holds and an ineffectual doorway to North Sea because, after all, North Sea's holding. So by my count, the only thing in the entire Western theater that actually moves is Baltic to Sweden. Good for you, Wardy.
Yes.
And the Russian fleet goes away in the spring and doesn't even retreat, which I also find interesting. If the theory is that they want to
Silesia as well.
You went to Silesia, right? Because you're trying to counter. I don't know what you're doing. Well, we'll find out what you're doing. But I agree. I was thinking of that a little more of an Eastern theater move than I was talking about the Western theater. Obviously, there's some areas where there's an overlap, but that was my thinking. The fact that the Russians didn't retreat somewhere and keep the fleet makes me think they're sort of giving up on the North because they want to be able to perhaps rebuild that if they get lucky in the fall turn. Let's go to fall 1903. The hammer falls on the Turks. So if there was an AT, there ain't no AT. Because Bulgaria falls, Aegean is obviously taken. So that's quite a interesting move here from Matt against Bernard. Otherwise, in the West, let me see. What happens in the West? Hold. Lots of red arrows that are sort of weird in the North Sea. Some joke orders from Brest. Wait, I'm sorry. Holland goes to Ruhr. There's a lot of activity in the West. Also, the French go to Western Mid. That's not insignificant, but again, that's an Eastern theater move, in my opinion. not west. So the West really is not extremely dynamic. Germany does, Wardy does go to Ruhr here. So that means something. All right, let's see what happens in 1904. Could we have more dynamism in the West, even with the German army build in Berlin? Can we, wait a minute, we have something going on here, because we've got Wardy going to Skagerrak with his fleet, and the army Berlin doesn't go east, it goes west. So something is happening here, in addition to the fact that Bradley has completely gone west. So this was not the turn for Matt Lynch. I would argue, and this is what I was joking about in the name of the game, I would argue that there was just simply too much holding and not doing anything from Matt. Perhaps that was diplomatically necessary. I don't know. Maybe he couldn't get anybody to cooperate with him. But he who hesitates is lost. And Matt is lost here, not having really done anything with his 4 units for the last, I don't know, year and a half or so. It doesn't even do anything here. It's a bunch of red arrows again with a hold in North Sea. Literally wasn't planning to do anything. And so now he's not going to do anything for other reasons. Are the Turks continuing to lose here? The answer is yes. They're continuing to lose. And maybe even the Italians are coming now, as you can see, redeploying to the east. Let's go to fall 1904 and see if the sadness of Turkey continues, and it really does, because now their attempt to do anything has basically been foiled in Bulgaria, and the Italians really are coming, because now they're in the Eastern Med. So I think the issue here is we got to eliminate some people, Bernard, and you're going to get eliminated. Bradley's convoy to Clyde, we've all seen that move and realized how fun that is when you can pull it off. It's even better in the spring turn, but it ain't bad in the fall turn as a way to crack your enemy. Otherwise, it's basically just FG cooperation. The English units are still not really being able to accomplish very much here, honestly, except covering Liverpool. All right, let's pause at the end of 1904, Robert, because I want to ask your opinion here. All right, we've got very clear targets with the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the East, both about to be killed. So who, once those people are dead, and they're going to be dead soon, which of these other powers is really the best position to contend for the board top, in your opinion? Go ahead to the winter, Chris, so that he can see the positions at the end of the winter.
That's an interesting question, because it's pretty close, right? We have 776 between Germany, Austria, and France, and these will likely be the contenders as well. I think I probably like France best, even though they are the one at 6, just because France is such a strong power in general. They have no pressure whatsoever from Italy as it stands. They will take a build from Liverpool next year, almost certainly. So I think I probably like France best, but I think the margins are very small. All 3 powers, Germany, France, and Austria, have a very, very realistic shot at taking the board top from this position, I would think.
Yeah, let's hold that prediction and see how it goes. I mean, the fact that the French are lower at this point might make a difference there, as you pointed out. I think an interesting question is Bradley was co-leading the tournament. Does that somehow enter into how this ends? We're going to find out from Wardy at the end of this game. Let's move through 1905, 1906 relatively quickly. I think you're going to find that this is mostly mopping up and cutting the Russians out of the deal, which of course was going to happen. So let's just move through here. There's really just a lot of destruction of England and Turkey, and not much movement in the middle, as you can see, sort of stasis as between the Austrians and the Germans, for example. And the Russians here are basically getting largely cut out. I know they took St. Pete, but I don't like their chances of holding it in the long term. So the English and the Turks are not dead yet. It's going to take longer. It'll have to go into 1906 to show the continual mopping up of the English and the Turkish remnants. So you'll see that in 1906 here. But you're also still seeing not a whole lot of activity in terms of warfare between F and I, for example. There's no warfare at this point between the Germans and the AI. There's just mopping up actions and cutting the Russians out of the draw. Even all the way to the winter of 1906, you'll see that now the English are gone at the end of 1906, and the Turks have been able to Stick around. It's hard to kill Turkey quickly, even with 3 powers helping. They didn't get an immediate start, so it takes a while to kill the Turks. So now you've got Bradley going up on the other 2 as between the 3 main powers. Possibly that could matter in a tie. The fact that France is now up as opposed to the other 2, depending on how long the game goes. England gone, Turkey gone. Now let's see if there's going to be any more warfare between the powers who are racing here. And the answer is no. Still no real war between F and I, for example. Still no, the Austrians have moved into Silesia with support, so perhaps they think there's warfare going on here. I don't know what Wardy thought at this point, but Holland, staying in Holland and not even going to Ruhr makes me think that there was not an intent to really push the position against the East much. And as you can see in the fall 1907, the Turks are now dead. There's no way for them. They can't even come back here with their army being eliminated. But you still don't have any real war in terms of the stalemate line fight. You do have the Turkmenian go to Western Med, but it almost doesn't matter because Ashe is not even moving the Ionian fleet to the west. So if there was going to be any kind of warfare going forward, it didn't look like it from these moves. Russia, as I said, getting cut out of the equation here completely, with Austria taking Warsaw and Germany taking Moscow as a recompense along with St. Pete. So winter 1907, what have we got? 3 people tied at 9 and the game is over.
Wow. So, Wardy, would you like to tell us a little bit about the specifics of the scoring system and the particular misorder?
Yeah, so that cost me
5 points.
certainly 5 points, because I would have actually done an unbreakable tie with Austria for tied second.
Which one was the misorder?
It was the count back between Austria and Germany goes all the way back to fall 1901. That Berlin to Holland attempt, which resulted in Kiel Hold.
Gosh,
and building one. So there was a lot of shade thrown at the West there, David. From a Western perspective, we were faced with what seemed like a very strong AIT on the other side, and we just decided to we're not going to do anything. We're just going to hold the line and not fight each other if this is the way it's going to go. I know Bradley was getting frustrated and in 1903 or something was like, oh, let's draw then. And we recruited Russia to our side. So we had a northwestern quadruple, if you like. But as soon as Turkey was attacked, that gave what became an FG to break out and attack England.
Just let me be clear that I was not really criticizing the West overall. I was criticizing Matt Lynch mostly, because I understand your point you're making is that he was holding off because you were worried about an AIT. I know, but you've got to get yourself in position where you're not going to be the one cut out when things change. Things were likely to change, particularly in a time-limited game, a year-limited game, and a bunch of Europeans who are used to, at the end of the game, doing a lot of moving around, taking centers from each other. There was going to be, because that's a more European play style, because of the time limit or the year limit. So there was going to be some change here. I think Matt just didn't give himself enough options by just sort of staying put and not really being anywhere. I think
Matt was having a lot of fun with the joke orders, though.
Well, good. I'm glad. Fun is actually the most important thing.
Just remember one thing, David. All Europeans are Care Bears. Whenever you end up next to a European on the board, ally with him. Please remember that.
I will give that the credit that is due.
I was offered what seemed like a genuine offer for the top from Bradley, who didn't want necessarily a big target on his back going into the third and final round. But I still couldn't even do that. But a great efficiency with Bradley. That's 2 shared board tops in terms of the final centres, which are two lone, or as good as two lone board tops in the scoring system. So
Quite good.
it's efficient play.
The best score we've seen so far, 85.
Yeah, because this was a 4-way draw as opposed to the 5 ways from the first round.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's head across to the other game from round 2 then.
Yes.
I will await the jingle of doom.
Now I'm just going to let you wait a minute. Just the anticipation, not just of yours, but of everyone,
We're not on tenterhooks.
watching this show.
Wonderful. There we've got it.
Okay, we have round 2, board 2, and we have Austria, Gunther Bedson, England, Greg Mostyn, France, George Merck, Germany. We have who wasn't here for round 1 but has now entered the tournament, Roni Mordvinov from Israel. We have Italy, Tadeusz Struck, Russia, Ian Wilson, and Turkey, Lauren Lloyd.
All right. I'd say let's get to it. Round 2,
So
board
you've
2.
been having a look at this one, Robert.
Yes. So the players are here on the board. Let's see what they will do in this round 2. So the game starts off with a utterly crazy East. A bounce in Romania, but no bounce in Galicia. Austria walks into Galicia. Turkey takes Black Sea and Armenia. Yet another move to Armenia. So Matt Sundstrom seems to be a very popular man in England. This is a very unconventional opening by Russia, and you see why, unfortunately. This is not how this should have gone for Russia, I think. At least not what they wanted. The West, pretty standard. Let's move to the fall. What do we have in fall? We see Russia losing serve in 1901 already, and yet another move into Romania and Bulgaria vacant. So this seems to be the theme of the tournament. Italy is taking Trieste, but convoying to Tunis. Was that with consent? We don't know. A, I, and T sort of seem to... there seem to be different options. AI is a possibility. AT could be a possibility. What will we see? We're not sure yet. Fun little order. Burgundy tried to support Tyrolia into Munich and just told Roni, nice that you arrived at this tournament, but I don't like you. And Italy isn't it. France could have walked there themselves, or Italy could have walked there like that. Nothing happens apart from Greg getting Belgium because nobody wanted to bounce him and England having 2 builds. So good for them. In winter, what do we see? We see 2 builds from France, and France says, okay, I've pissed off Roni. Let's do it properly then. I'm only building armies, saying, look, all I'm going to do in this game is attacking you, Germany, apparently at least. So if we move into spring of 1902, we see it is actually probably an AT rather than anything else in the East. Italy was probably sold on the idea of yet another AIT, so they moved to Tyrolia, and Austria said, thank you, Trieste is my home center, I'm gonna keep that, and bouncing them out of Ionian. Turkey takes Bulgaria for now, so good for them. And in the West, we see England sort of staying out of the FG conflict. So that's always nice when you can say, okay, they've committed. They will fight each other. What else will France do for now? So I'm just going to go against Russia. Unfortunately, Germany kicks them out of Belgium. So that's the little thing that is not that nice for Greg. But the rest is fairly nice. It looks like Greg will have his pick of ally in the West. If we go into fall, we see a pretty chaotic West. Greg seems to have decided that he wants to work with Germany and he supports them into Burgundy. But Germany, either Roni didn't believe it or he just said, like, I can take on both of you, you weaklings. I don't care. Because he's supporting himself into Burgundy with English help and supporting himself into North Sea, coming out, swinging punches, throwing punches into all directions. And in the East, it's a fairly static turn. Italy pulls back. They realize, okay, I have problems, so I'm gonna go against this AT. But Austria and Turkey are both building from this position, so that is not great for them. So we go into the builds. Austria and Turkey grow a little. Germany gets something on the board. Russia is already down to 3, with one of them being Sweden, so that is brutal for Ian Wilson. And if we move on into 1903, we see the West has changed again. So it's a reversal of direction again. Greg realized, okay, Roni is not that nice to me, so let's support France back into Burgundy. Roni tries to convoy into Yorkshire, and now we see what we wanted to see earlier. Greg just staying in place, tapping North Sea and saying, yep, you could have convoyed into Eddie or London.
That's bold.
You weren't doing that. I knew you were going for position in spring, so not with me. And apart from that, Italy thinks attack is the best defense, convoying into Albania while Austria is coming for Venice. Will that turn out well? Well, we'll have to see. How does it go in fall for Italy? There is a lot of dipsy doodle. They get Trieste, but they lose Venice. So Austria has a bit of a problem here. Generally, the AT is moving very well. They get Warsaw, they get Venice, but they have 2 intruding armies that can cause them a lot of trouble, I think. Italy in Trieste with lots of Austrian centers next to it. Russia losing Warsaw, yes, but being in Galicia. So that is not too great from a positional point of view for Austria. And it looks to be there is yet another reconfiguration of alliances in the West. Is it in G now with France going into English Channel and Picardy being piffed? We shall see. Germany gets also built from Sweden, so good for them. So we move on. And in the winter, we see, okay, army. Nothing too exciting, I would think, but we see that Austria doesn't have enough units to cover everything that they would like to cover. And if we go to spring in 1904, what will be the solution to that? In spring, it is actually Turkey being very helpful, saying, yeah, I'm going to cover Serbia for you. No problem, my friend. I'm with you. Austria also has to pull a lot of armies back to defend. So this is all looking like Austria losing quite a bit of tempo because of these 2 armies, and Turkey actually being in a mega position here, getting Serbia, getting Moscow, getting into Ionian. This is just an amazing position for Lauren Lloyd at this point, I would say. So let's see what is happening in the West in 1904 and fall of 1904. Actually, finally, FG is making some progress. They convoy into London. This time, Greg doesn't guess right. So England is starting to go down. And yes, Austria sort of manages to deal with Italy. They keep Venice, they regain Trieste, but they had to give up Serbia in the process. So at the end of 1904, if we look at the centers, how is the position looking? Turkey has taken the lead with 8, and that's a very strong sign. If Turkey is at 8 after 4 game years, that is very hard to fight, I would think, most of the times. They built 2 fleets, so they are clearly saying, I'm going to continue with Austria. And yes, why not? They are 3 behind them. They are their likable little junior partner, so I wouldn't see why they would want to change that at this point. In 1904, Germany does something interesting. A convoy into Norway while they are fighting England. That's at least creative. I mean, yes, Norway is also an English center. Most players would like to keep that army on the island, but since England didn't tap Wales, it was probably the right move, because otherwise it would have been piffed. So probably a pretty smart move, actually, even though it's looking unconventional in the beginning. And AT is just rolling, moving on. In fall 1905, Turkey actually gives Serbia back to Austria very graciously. Yes, they get into Tunis, so they have no problem staying ahead of Austria, even with this center trade. And France is in Venice. Italy is saying, okay, I'm probably out of this anyway, so might as well harm AT as much as I can and put France into Venice. Germany can retake London with a fleet, so that was actually a pretty smart move to convoy the army to Norway, because now they've gained Norway, not lost that army, and they still have London at the end of the year. Nice job, Roni Mordvinov. So after this year, we've got one more winter phase. Okay, another French fleet. Nothing very surprising, I would say. Once again, Germany is building armies because they don't need that many fleets. England is almost gone. Russia is gone already. If we move on into spring of 1906, this is just turned out into yet another 2-on-2, two big alliances, and they clean up the smaller powers, it seems. AT versus EG. The question is only who will get who will have the better finish, who will be quicker to the line, Germany or Turkey, or will maybe France or Austria somehow pull out something from behind. But right now it seems to be a race between Germany and Turkey, who are both at 8. And they are just both moving forward. Italy is losing. Naples, Turkey helps England survive in St. Pete. And if we go into fall, we see that AT has completely finished up their side of the board. Venice is gone, Rome is gone, Naples is gone. And here we really see the price of the West taking a few years to get a solid alliance together, while the AT was moving in coordination from the get-go. Because often when we see a 2-on-2 situation with a two-way alliance in the East and a two-way alliance in the West is just able to move more quickly because they only have one opponent in the West, really. In this case, they have not finished England yet, whereas the AT is already in a position to potentially move on the line. They will probably not take anything in the German region, but they could have some play in the Iberian region with all those Turkish fleets down there, and France not really having a lot to defend, even though they're getting a build. So we can move on. Winter, how is it looking? France at 10, and this is actually where the game ends. So great job, Lauren Lloyd, a very dominant play by Turkey. Well done. Yet there might be a question mark why the players would keep England alive. They're only on 2 centers, but it's their choice. Austria, I would also wonder, they take a 4th place, even though they were sort of on the quote-unquote winning side, if there is such a thing as a side in diplomacy. So maybe one could have argued that there would be a motivation for Günther to play on as well. Maybe say, hey, Lauren, it wouldn't hurt you to give me 1 center. You would still be in the lead. How about then I could move past France and at least take a 3rd place score? But anyway, fun game. AT worked really, really well. We often see a breakup at some point, and in this case it didn't. It lasted until the end, but obviously part of that was that Austria sort of had this tempo loss in the middle of the game where they had to defend from 2 invader armies, and that really gave Turkey the upper hand in this alliance and made sure that everybody knew Turkey is the major power in this alliance and Austria is sort of the junior partner.
Yeah, for some reason, if you let Turkey survive and get bigger in the early part of the game, they're really hard to stop. I guess that's why people kill them a lot. Interestingly, we talk about Turkey being out of position if they take Romania instead of Bulgaria in 1901. And Lauren made this work.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's a diplomatic stunt, right? If you get Austria to work, it's not a problem. You are in a very good position to attack Russia if you are in Romania and in Sevastopol already after 1901. That's a great position. Yep, she clearly was able to forge a good relationship with Günther, and more credit to her.
And also, I think Roney made some really good moves tactically and diplomatically in this game. And I think a great result for him coming into this tournament in round 2.
Yes. And potentially his first face-to-face tournament, maybe even face-to-face game. I don't know.
It is his first, yeah.
So
first in person.
Congratulations. That is a very respectable result for that as well. Yeah, totally.
It's just the differing fortunes of Turkey in this round. We had in both games Turkey around this stage of the game, each at 6 centers. One was eventually eliminated. The other has gone on to top the board. This is where Lauren managed to get past that 6. Just show, it is hard to push Turkey back from this position, but it's possible, as we saw from the last game.
Well, are we ready to move on to round 3?
Yes, I do believe we are, sir.
Because you know what that's going to mean.
Oh, yes.
da da. There it is.
Cooking with gas. And the third and final round, the 2 boards again in this round. And in Austria, we have a handsome devil. In England, Gunter Bedson. In France, we have Gary Sturley. He's playing both boards this round. Even though he missed round 2, unexpectedly, he played both games 4 score in this
wow.
round. Germany, Matt Lynch. Italy, George Merck. Russia, Matt Smith, and Turkey was Ian Wilson.
Yeah, look at those second place players in Russia and Austria. That's always interesting. And somebody in 4th position in England as well. So quite a few of the chasers, the people who are directly trailing Bradley on this board.
Okay.
Right. So maybe we switch it up.
To give you a clue, we've got at this stage Bradley, Matt Smith, Gunter Bedson, Lauren Lloyd, and myself really sort of in the hunt. And Gary had a great first round score. He would need two good scores from this final round.
That would be spectacular, winning the tournament by missing a round and then playing 2 boards at once. That would be a win in style. Let's see if he can pull it off. All right.
Take the spring this time, Robert?
Sure. Why not? That's an unusual opening by George Mork. It seems he wants to go west. He puts his fleet into Tyrrhenian Sea. He holds Venice and walks into Tunis. Now, yeah, you can do that. The problem is that, if I want to go west, I think I just put the army into Piedmont right away because, yes, you can support yourself there, but then you have to put the fleet into Tunis. Yeah, maybe this is what's happening, but okay, I guess it's just an all-out Western move. I still don't quite understand why you don't do Venice to Piedmont and Rome to Venice, but it might not make much of a difference. Apart from that, standard openings in the East, the more classical Smyrna to Con we've seen before by Ian Wilson, and once again I'm running away from England and Germany and the Lowlands opening for France. And Army Liverpool to Eddie, worth noting, gives you a bit more flexibility in terms of where you which fleet you want to use to convoy the army, but also leaves you vulnerable to a potential move to the Channel. But it seems like Günther trusted Gary, and yep, it works out for him, it seems.
Nothing to add there. All right, fall turn. Of course, the convoy to Tunis. The Turks moving around their units there is, of course, an RT type thing, although the Russians putting the fleet in Romania instead of the army is not an RT move, or at least not a very good RT move, because the fleet obviously can't go inland from there against the Austrians. In the West, we've got another game, I think the second one in the row, where the English take Belgium with the convoy. There's always a question of who's going to get Belgium. In this particular case, the reason they're taking Belgium is because the Germans have said, I'm going to Burgundy. If France is going to run away from me like this, I'm going to go to Burgundy and put some pressure on the French. Now, the interesting thing about that is if you're going to commit like that as the Germans and hopefully committing to pro-England, do you bounce the Russians in Sweden or not? It still might be the right move to not bounce them in Sweden. We're going to find out. Are you telling me that the French only built one and they should have built two? Gary, it's almost like you're playing 2 games at one time or something. Pay attention, man.
I think this was the turn he submitted them. Obviously, he was trying to spread himself between the two tables, and he put his in. And he goes, we asked, "Are yours in, Gary?" He said, "Yes," and it's correct. So it was deliberate. I guess a diplomatic play.
That is weird. I mean, I don't know what kind of a diplomatic play, saying screw you,
Well,
Germany.
yeah, I was going to say what you might be saying to Germany is you still can't do anything to me this turn, at least not by yourself. And by me not building a second army, I have given myself the ability to move against somebody else with a fleet if you will just leave.
Potentially, yeah.
Conversely, doesn't it say to England, look, we're cool if you help me out. If you don't, I can always build a fleet.
It does, but it would be very dangerous if England had in fact built Fleet London, which is not that unreasonable. So, but I mean, you said that there are negotiations in the winter, so maybe he made some kind of a deal.
Well, I don't think he partook in that.
Yeah, probably because he had little time. Yeah, that's an argument, but it's definitely a bold move on Gary's part because Fleet London would really screw him over here more than he's already screwed over. But who knows? Maybe it will work out for him.
I think the question in the spring is going to be: do the Turks do the three-way switcheroo Congo line in Turkey or not? We'll see.
Or do they support themselves into black? They move Con and Ankara into Con. They lose Bulgaria. Russia is coming for them full force. So maybe they should have seen the writing on the wall when Russia put the fleet into Romania. The only slightly good thing for Turkey is that Italy isn't anti-Turkish. They're not pro-Turkish either, but they're at least not really caring about them. But still, this is a bad position for Turkey. Italy continues their idea to go west. At the same time, in the west, somehow it worked. I don't know if Gary can do mind control or something, but his waving a build worked that it pulled England off of them. England tries to take Holland, which unfortunately doesn't work out. Unfortunately for Günther and probably also unfortunately for Gary, because this leaves the option of England saying, hey, nothing happened, no harm, no foul. Let's get back to EG. I'm sorry, Matt. However, he also moved into Skagerrak, so he should be able to take something. Well, probably. And now he also has to worry about Belgium, so it's going to be a bunch of guesses. But he at least has offensive potential against Germany in the fall.
Agreed. And he does, in fact, lose Belgium to the Germans, but takes Denmark. Yeah, this has worked out as well as it could have for Gary in the West. Of course, it's not great that he has a bunch of Italians coming.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Hey, George, why did you not move to Piedmont here or something? Because there was no fleet to worry about Leon not moving. So that's a tempo problem, I think. In fact, you might have just wanted to move Tuscany, Leon, and try to move the fleets like to North Africa and West. I don't know. Anyway,
or even the army back. I mean, the army that is stuck in Tunis is never nice. Do True. Tuscany to Lyon and convoy, let's say, Tyrrhenian Sea to Tuscany or something.
Yeah, that would have made some sense. Well, the Russians take Ankara as they were likely to do, given the Austrian moves, and really bad for the Turks.
Ouch,
and Austria leaves Galicia, so hopefully, from their point of view, they've got an AR machine going here.
That was just a communication problem. I thought we were bouncing again, and so vacated.
Makes sense. Okay. So Russia has taken the early lead with 7, even though that doesn't always have to mean that much with Russia. Put on an army in Moscow. Interesting. I mean, one could argue that it's not really needed against Turkey. So Austria might have to worry what it is meant for then. One could very well make an argument that a unit in Warsaw or St. Pete would be useful. So let's see if Matt has devious plans against Wardy or not.
Surely not. Nobody would do that.
Especially me. I would never step Wardy.
I mean, Ukraine could just be defensive, honestly, I think. But we'll see. You're the spring.
Oh, yeah. Right. So Austria takes Con. Russia moves into Armenia. You're right. It's not particularly aggressive. If you really had wanted to move on Austria, you probably would have done Romania to Galicia and Sev to Rum or something. Or just tried for Bulgaria straight away. Russia has made sort of a peace treaty with England. They're not really helping them with anything, but they're also not attacking Norway, and neither is England coming for them for the time being. Germany actually defends fairly well here. They managed to kick Ruhr out back to Burgundy. Not much they can do against Helgoland. I'm sure it's too much, but it would have been sensible to try to convince Matt Smith to tap Denmark for you, which he didn't do. But yep, Matt Lynch has an English problem here, and France sort of is a bit stuck. It's good that they managed to prevent that EG from happening, but Italy will not really gain anything quickly here, but they make sure that France are not making any gains anytime soon, I think. And this looks just like a classical, hey, why should Italy and France not fight early? Maybe it will take a turn sometime soon, but I think this is a good example of why that shouldn't happen.
Unless you can get the jump on the other side.
Sure, sometimes you can really get the jump, that's true, but Italy didn't really get that. They were too hesitant maybe for that, actually.
Yeah. Interestingly, this bull to con move was initially adjudicated incorrectly on the board. It's all, correct me if I'm wrong, this is all because Black Sea support holds Ankara, right? Because that means that it's a 2-on-2, so Con can't take Ankara, but also it can't cut the support upon itself.
Correct.
Right, and Ankara would have been this lot that would have cut the support here.
Which wouldn't have mattered because then he would have gone in anyway because Khan is leaving. Yeah. But that's totally right. I'm glad that that was eventually repaired. Part of Italy's problem is that they don't have the units in the right place. That's what you were talking about earlier, Robert. So having the army in North Africa and the fleet in Piedmont is definitely subpar. Even if you had gotten any kind of jump on the French, it's subpar.
Yep, that's very true. All right. Let's see the fall, I'd say.
Okay, England making progress killing the Germans in Belgium. I mean, the Russians simply have a deal with the English. That's why there was no help coming for the Germans. And that's fine for Matt Smith until it's not. So the question is, when Germany dies, what is the next step? But at least for right now, it looks like the AR is sticking together and making significant progress. There's a little bit of unit efficiency issue here. Too much holding for the Russians simply because why not just support things? And what are you going to do now? If your units are not in position to move against Germany or England, what are you going to do here going forward? We'll see.
He needs a target.
Yes.
It seems that my Italian neighbor didn't trust what I was doing at this turn.
Yep.
And you're such a trustworthy fellow.
I know, right?
Because Wardy is a trustworthy fellow, but also because, if Wardy had wanted Trieste, he just could have taken it, right? He had 3 armies next to it, so it's a bit of a weird move that sort of moves you backwards, but it doesn't really give you all that much security, really, if you think it through.
Plus, all Wardy had to do is move out of his center so he could build there. That's what he was doing.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly that. Although there was discussion over Munich.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm an absolute sucker, especially in Austria, for not leaving home centers open for builds. So I made sure I did.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to happen to you when you're Austria because there's usually people around you and you're trying to defend.
Yep. I have been known to join the Jürgen school of Serbian planning before, so I managed to avoid that.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, 1904.
Trieste now walks out and Wardy follows in. That looks arranged, right? Because you don't even support it, which is a bit weird that Italy was so worried about it last turn and now is okay with it. But
yeah, we're going to put him in Munich here.
Okay, that makes sort of sense. EF tries to take on Germany and Russia at the same time. So now, as David pointed out, it's fine for Russia until it's not, and it seems like now is the time that it's not anymore. But it's really only England who's moving forward, because Gary is boxed in by Italy, and he's helping England, but he's not really getting any of the gains. Let's see if he maybe gets Belgium by the grace of Günther or something. Apart from that, I don't see where he's growing anytime soon, which is a problem for France.
England is a competitor for this this tournament still at this point, and seems to be making a dangerous move.
Yeah, it's a high risk, high reward position for England. I think it could turn out to be very, very nice for them, or they could collapse quickly.
I was wondering what the Russians were going to do. Were they going to go into Silesia from Galicia or be more passive? And they've elected to be passive again, sort of unnecessarily worrying about you, Chris, in a way that I think is harmful to the Russian position.
Well, I think they're more worried about England now, aren't they?
Yes, but why would you not go to Silesia here or something just to make sure?
Or from Galicia, yeah.
To get yourself a piece of the action, or go to Moscow from Ukraine or something. Get your units going in the right direction. Sitting there defending Romania doesn't, with all due respect to Matt Smith, doesn't really do you very much good in this situation, I don't think. Because if Christopher, if you were going against him here, then he's sunk anyway. So he was going to have to assume that was not going to happen, and that you were going to let him just get the build for Smyrna and cooperate with him. You just can't leave the armies there doing nothing in this situation, I don't think. But in the West, you've got exactly what England wanted here, and as you said, France getting Belgium as a recompense for helping is good for them. The Italians do take, now that they finally moved their units into the right position. They were able to take Mid-Atlantic. There was no stopping it.
But they have a little problem, which is red.
The Italians, of course they do, yeah. But they've committed this way. Maybe they're assuming they're going to survive in Scandinavia. I mean, in Iberia. Maybe that's the theory behind this.
I mean, this is the turn where the stab happened, right? Wardy said last turn that Trieste was agreed upon, but so. Applauds to Wardy, 2 center stab, getting Ionian. This is pretty devastating.
It really is.
It also allows me to free up France to keep England in check.
Yes, that is true. If they move against England at some point, let's see.
I don't know how they're going to keep them much in check with these Italians still screwing around, but maybe there's getting ready to be some disbands that'll help them do that.
Okay. So many English fleets.
They probably felt like they had to build in Liverpool, just given the situation.
Helping France outright,
or at least not have the Italians leak into your friendly waters.
True.
Yeah. Managed to get George to keep the fleets here.
Well, how hard was that really? He couldn't really do anything but that. The only chance he's got in this situation is to try to survive on the edge somewhere, and it was not going to be it was not going to be on the Italian boot.
Tyrolia is not helping him at all survive, for example, or Tunis in the long run either. He can still cover it from Western Med for the time being, but eventually it will be toast.
I don't like his chances, period, but his only good chance is this.
Yeah.
I'm also enjoying watching the AR work because, again, one of those alliances we don't see as much.
Yes, that is true. And it looks like, there is a deal between Austria and Italy for now. Austria refrains from taking any more, at least for now. That might still happen, maybe actually next turn already. But they are moving up to the line to take on German territory, which is now mainly owned by EF. Russia is finally going north with some stuff, but it's mainly defensive at this point. They're not putting anything onto the line in Germany. they will not take Norway or anything. So Matt Smith is a bit bottled up here, whereas Wardy still has a bunch of centers he can take. So that's very good for Wardy, I think,
Venice
here.
holding, Wardy. Venice holding is pretty.
That's
says a lot to me.
it's
supposed to go to Piedmont.
Was it really? I didn't have any idea that that's what it was supposed to do.
now that it has held. I mean, it could go to Rome. It was never planned
Rome
that way.
is nice in the fall. It's nice.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Arrivederci at Rome. Once you
See.
get there, you got to leave.
Oh, wow, what a
In my
misfortune.
defense. Yeah, we had an agreement to give George time to go and find somewhere else to live, but at this point, a conversation broke out about whittling the draw size.
I see.
This was the only reason this happened.
Okay,
Well, that's fine. It gives you an excuse.
Like in a PDL game or something, very, very different things would happen, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's your turn, David, right? It's fall.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're totally right. So Chris, you're giving Russia con, which makes sense because you're taking Rome and Tunis. The English are doing what they need to do. Otherwise, Russians going to the line, but we'll see if that really means much. It's not like you all have beaten them to the punch or anything from the RA point of view. So I think the question is, does England do England and France stick together? And at this point, with England at 8 and hoping to eventually take St. Pete, we'll see.
All right, there is an Austrian fleet. Always love to see that. I think we haven't seen an Austrian fleet built in this tournament so far. Russia builds fleet north coast. Makes sense. Yeah. And I don't like Matt Lynch's chances of surviving here either.
No, there is such a thing as living on the line, but generally not with Fleet Berlin.
Yeah. And draw sized. All right, let's see. Yeah. Austria gets Berlin. Austria gets Naples. So it seems like at this point, Matt really doesn't care much that he's not going to be on top. Maybe it's actually because Wardy has a chance of potentially winning this tournament and Matt hasn't. That could be sometimes that makes it.
He was only.
No, he hit the right. He hit the
head,
right. So yeah, no, that okay. Then it's actually interesting that.
But of course, he and England are jostling for position not only in the game but the tournament as well.
I mean, it's
not much, because if that's true, then Matt should be taking Norway here.
Exactly. Yeah. He could have taken it. Now, can he hold it? Probably not in the long run, but he might as well try for it. And yes, I guess there is a shot that Munich would tap Silesia, so you could maybe argue that this way is safer, but then to put Austria into Berlin. But I would have really argued to get Berlin here if I'm Russia. I think I'm one behind already. Austria is getting Naples, so I think that would have made sense. But hey, if you can get it as Austria, good for you.
I think they couldn't decide over which one of them was supposed to get it, so I was the fortunate beneficiary on that front.
Good for you. England is pulling all those fleets back, so they are just defending. Yeah.
Yeah, this looks like some kind of arranged end is coming, because otherwise you don't see. I know I've joked a lot about holds. The reason you would see a lot of holds here at the end is because there's already been a deal made and you're just getting it done.
Yeah, so, just waiting for Italy and Germany to die, I guess.
Yeah.
There's not really any attempt to... And I mean, Wardy is at this point clearly in the lead, and we see the draw, which makes sense, So congratulations, Chris. Taking 85 points. Very good score. The best score we've seen so far. The other three also get a very good number with that 4-way draw. But yeah, well played. You were on the stronger line.
to get my first virtual lone board top. It took 36 hours to get my first in-person full top. So,
Well, and this is an impressive one because you don't often see the AR. And when you do have an AR, it can be hard for Austria to be the dominant player because usually when an AR is working, it's because the Russians have made some progress in Scandinavia, or they have got fleets in the Med to help you or something. So often the fact that Russia is in the lead in an AR alliance. So the fact that you're able to pull this off with impeccable timing on your move against the Italians, and then working with the Italians for a short period of time so that they disbanded the right units. It's just a very well played game. So I enjoyed watching you top this board.
And just one last thing about this. It's a sign of good diplomacy when you have cleared out as an alliance all of the eastern centers in the Med and you only have 2 fleets in the whole Mediterranean region.
That is how AR alliances succeed, is for the fact that you've got a weak Mediterranean not to matter.
You cannot overpower the powers like Turkey and Italy by pure tactics in terms of fleets, because they will always have more. So you got to somehow make your gains on the land and then make it a mix of a land war and good diplomacy that doesn't matter that you don't have so many fleets.
Yeah, and it's usually the French fleets that are defeating you through the AR alliance because you've weakened the Italians and the French can move their fleets. The fact that didn't happen here, in part because you had the Italians on side for that short period of time after they were stabbed, that made a difference, made a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and this gave me a chance, depending on what was going on the other board. So yeah, I thought I need to maximize the score here and hope that it's enough.
Let's see. I mean, Gary and Matt both are behind you, so even though they will probably finish up fairly high in the rankings with 55 and 65, but they should be behind you. So it's really all eyes on Bradley, I would think, right?
Absolutely, yeah. This was enough to put me ahead. I leapfrogged Matt, and I didn't know what the situation was with Gary on the other table. I think this score probably just kills off anything barring a solo. But really, I needed an elimination for Bradley on the other board.
Okay. Let's see.
Or just a low rank in the draw.
Well, let's go find out. I've got time to finish that last game, I think, as far as my time is concerned. So let's go find out.
And here we go, the final round, second board, and we have Bernard Andreoli in Austria, Gary Sturley playing on this board as well as t'other in England, and Thaddeus Struck in France, Lauren Lloyd, who is in the mix for the tournament as well in Germany, Bradley Grace, the leader in Italy, Roni Mordvanov in Russia, and Greg Mostin in Turkey.
Okay.
Robert, let's take game years one back, and we'll just do it sort of in quick fashion. 1901 and then I'll take 1901, and then you can take 1902.
All right, let's go for it.
All right, 1901. Let's see. Western openings are all fairly standard. At least we don't see the French running away from the line like we've seen several times. In the East, you've got another Turk going to Armenia. My goodness.
Is maybe Matt Sundstrom an option for prime minister for Great Britain? Consider it. I know you were looking for a new one.
Wait, is that job open? Is that job open again? About to be open again?
Soon, who knows?
I mean, probably.
I trust that it is not open again anytime soon.
Oh, she's been around long enough to get name recognition.
At least I know who that is. All right, let's go to the fall turn, because really nothing else to write home about as far as the spring goes. So let's look at the fall turn. Do we have anything to write home about? My God, Romania and the Turks in Romania again.
Do people just not
My
like Bulgaria?
gracious, it's done a different way this time, but still, wow. Also, Struck, you got 3 builds as France. I wonder if he actually builds all 3 of them. We'll find out. Lauren was worried about Munich being snaked, so she went back to Munich instead of worrying anything about Belgium. And you've got Gary doing the full bore, I'm going to go kill the Russians opening for the English.
Okay, he's doing the Leroy Jenkins and running east.
Wow.
No, wow, this is a weird build on Tadeus's part.
Well,
also, Lauren, just as much, but like, if you wave 1 out of 3 builds as France, I wouldn't think that you would put down no army.
5 fleets built in the West.
Wow.
I'm not sure the last time I saw that, to be perfectly honest.
This is pretty insane.
That can be an extremely strong FG alliance, is what that can be. Just extremely well committed FG.
I guess so, huh? Okay. Yeah, that's what it looks to be. Germany's sort of going into both directions, anti-Russian and anti-English with those 2 fleets, but England realizes, oh, I gotta go back to my island because they are coming for me with so many fleets.
Sorry, Russia, cheerio.
Yeah, sorry, I'm out of here. And in the east, AI is going against, I feel like we have seen that before. Turkey committing into Armenia, going anti-Russian, and AI saying, that looks tasty, let's go for it. Probably not the best thing for Turkey either. Now they probably won't take Bulgaria. They have this Lepanto thing into Syria coming, or Smyrna if they don't take care. So, yeah, not a good thing for Turkey.
It is interesting that Bernard is not going to Galicia here.
It is. It could be just, I don't know. Maybe he's pitching an AIR here, even though I don't know if Roni can do that much for AI right now because he's so much on the defense already. Or it was just like a misorder. Vienna had that order issued and he miswrote it or something. But yeah, agreed. It's weird.
This business in Bulgaria, could this be arranged rather than a miscommunication? Could it be, you can have Bulgaria, but I'm going to order there, says Turkey, so you can't use Serbia against Romania?
Possibly, yeah. That would maybe explain why I put the fleet there and not the army. So yeah, that's at least an option. Let's see. I mean, at least Budapest tried to support with Romania, so it could still be that Austria and Turkey are fine, but Italy going to an Eastern Med is certainly not arranged with Turkey, I would suppose. But maybe it's rather an AT than an AI. Austria has the options right now, I think. And they pick sort of Russia. Is this? I guess this is they are probably okay with Italy taking Greece as their 5th build, I think, because they get Bulgaria, they put Russia into Romania, so it is actually an AIR from all I can see, unless Italy stabbed here, but I don't think so. And in the West, Germany takes North Sea because of London hold. I don't know why. This is really yet another very, very unfortunate hold, probably due to Gary playing 2 boards again. But this could be a bye-bye situation for England very quickly.
Well, interestingly, he pulls it off the board, which is probably the right move here.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to have Norwegian here. Probably you rebuild it as an army because it's just more defensible. You have lost the sea battle already. Irish is gone, English is gone, North Sea is gone. So probably it's your best shot of to defend it by building an army.
I really don't like this Turkish defense.
Yeah, convoy to Constantinople.
I know it's a guess, but even if you wanted to do this, you want to make sure that Constantinople arrives in Smyrna so that Rum. Well, I don't know, maybe not, but
there wasn't. I mean, he was trying to cover all those spots, and that was a way he could do it without taking a chance of leaving the Black Sea. So that's what he was doing. He was covering Syria, Smyrna, and Con this way.
There's a rationale behind it. Now he's stuck with 2 fleets, though. That is a bit of a problem because often armies are better, not only in England but also in Turkey, to defend. But yeah.
But now we know why the Russians were led into Galicia, because he was going to be supported into Romania like that.
Yep. Okay. Let's see builds.
Gosh.
Fleet
South Coast.
Fleet South Coast. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, England is dying, so play balance of power and do something against Germany. Why not? Fleet Marseille. So France is already sort of putting stuff down to defend against Italy or go for Italy themselves. Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting build, to build Fleet Marseille, to be perfectly honest. I thought that was interesting. Because I guess you're not going to be stopped from going to Lyon if you want to go there.
Yep. Lyon and Western Med could be a good idea. Yeah.
Perhaps. But neither one can be stopped.
Yeah. That's true. But only one goes. So it's your year again, and David?
Yeah, because the Mid-Atlantic goes north, which is fine. That's sort of what I would have expected in this situation. Just I got to kill your target off, and the Germans are about to be distracted by Russians. So the French, if they're going to continue to kill the English, they got to commit everything they can up there, which is what they're doing. Convoying to London is a nifty move there. Isn't that what they did? Let me look.
Yes.
Yeah.
Convoying to London. That's pretty nifty. So let's look. Let's see. The Germans take Sweden, which of course was going to happen after that fleet build. The Russians and the Austrians continue to be friendly. So do we have an heir still? Looks like it. It's not ideal to put the fleets have in Armenia, but it's understandable. It's the only place the only one you can put there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, continue to AIR cooperation, I think, because they moved against Munich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they can now take if they want. Yeah. Convoy back to Tuscany. I think somebody mentioned that earlier. That sometimes you have to do that as your defensive move for I think that was you, Robert. So if you're going to be the Italians, you got to at some point get that army back to where it can actually do some good, which is not in Tunis. The Italians haven't gotten much here. They weren't able to get Smyrna because the Austrians took Con with support.
They got Munich on the other side of the board.
They did get Munich. That's true.
Not too bad.
Totally true. Totally true.
And yeah, Germany gets kicked out of Sweden again. So yeah, it's a two-way Western alliance struggling to keep up with the pace of the AIR, which we see quite a bit. Sometimes the right move at this point is saying, "Sorry, England, let's triple up and keep you alive."
Well, that's maybe what's happening in the sense that North Atlantic just went to Mid Atlantic, and the French and the Germans are bouncing. I guess they're bouncing in Belgium to defend it.
Yeah,
but they're certainly moving back that fleet. I know they took London, but they moved back that fleet.
But on the other hand, England is supporting Finland into Sweden. But that we could see that in the making. We could see a Western Triple next year, maybe, because it will be very difficult to carve up those two armies. This is exactly why armies are good for defending the English island, because Liverpool and Eddie are pretty hard to take out. I mean, okay, Army London will help, but it will take some time. So, we'll see. Could go either way.
Yep.
Italy builds, France builds, both build armies. Okay. Army Paris. Okay, yeah, sure, because Italy is in Munich. Yeah, sure, that makes sense. Looks like England doesn't want to be a janissary for FG. They pull Norway, which would have been the most useful piece to do that. Instead, they keep those two armies. And yeah.
We will never surrender.
Fight them on the beaches.
Fight them on the beaches. Fight them on the landing grounds. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that Helgoland was kept, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know how totally well it's useful if the Russians put you in Denmark, it's useful.
Or friend Winston is in Denmark now with Russian help. Southbound's in Yorkshire, and Turkey is about dead. Almost
They're trading it for Norway.
They still have Black Sea, but England is trading it for Norway. AR is still solid-ish. Yeah, I guess it makes sense to retreat to Silesia. You could have done the more aggressive option to go to Ruhr, but Actually, that would have been fun because there's only one enemy army onto Munich. So maybe this could be a little dodgy. Let's see what this Italian army is up to if it wants to walk into
I would like to have retreated to Ruhr if this alliance was sticking together.
Me too, yeah. First, I thought maybe it was because it could be tapped and they needed it to secure Munich. But as I said, there's only one army next to it right now, so not much of a danger there. But it could be
I just like to hear Robert say Ruhr again.
Ruhr. Ruhr.
Das Ruhrgebiet?
The French moving to North Atlantic again is an interesting set of moves. Boing, 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 boing.
Yep.
Usually boings are not good. When I say boing, I don't mean something good there usually.
You don't mean 747?
I don't.
Let's see what the fall has in store for us. Okay, no, Italy
There we go.
doesn't walk into Warsaw. They just go into Berlin. So, yeah, AIR is rolling. They keep England and Denmark. Russia gets their build off of Norway and of Ankara. Turkey, thanks for playing, Greg. England is knocked down to 2 because they also lose Liverpool. And Italy is coming. So France has some problems. They have quite a few green units next to their southern flank. That could really be a problem for Thaddeus.
I was not expecting North Sea to Edinburgh. That is a great, I mean, I just totally missed that was what was going to happen. And that's exactly a good move.
Yep.
To cut that support.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm very pleased to see Bernard having a good game here because his previous 2 rounds, he got up to, I think it was at 5 with England, and then got stabbed by his French ally at the turn he got into Denmark. In round 2, he was up to 6 as Turkey, and then got pushed all the way back and eliminated. He's got nothing around him here in Austria. He looks pretty safe. He's moving forward. He's useful. He's in Munich. It's good to see him having a good game because he's a really nice fella.
Okay, yeah, that's always an aspect of face-to-face as well. I think you know more of the people actually than you have in virtual. So
it might be a good time to pause here and say, I guess Bradley's going to win Spirecon because he is not anywhere remotely.
He's not getting eliminated anytime soon. Even there is a small chance, I suppose, of a Russian solo, but even that, he would likely not be eliminated before Austria.
Yeah, and and it's very unlikely. I mean, 99 games, it's possible, but it's a very short time frame to solo mostly.
So yeah, he knows that he only needs, I think, a third, but barring a solo on the game that we've just seen, I think he knew that third would be enough for him.
Well, let's keep going.
He walks into Kiel.
He does walk into Kiel.
Forces his way into Marseille.
Oh yeah.
It does appear that we've still got AIR cooperation. So just from a macro point of view, that's what's going on. Convoy to Marseille looks nice.
Yeah, it looks like
otherwise Russians moving around. I mean, there is no the walls are breached. The barbarians are coming through the gate. I mean, in terms of the Eastern barbarians are coming through the gate. There's nothing that can be done here. Just a question of how far they go before and whether somebody is going to get jumped on here.
Always hard when you're like the board leader, as France was, and yet seeing the other side of the board slowly starting to surround you. But yeah, Con looks arranged, doesn't it? That this
it does. It does.
This is Bradley and Roney being mainly virtual players, I think, from where they've started, showing the board, hey, look how fun an AIR is. Look what we have been doing for 2 years on virtual boards.
They are best frenemies, after all.
Yeah, the Russians are in the North Sea. This is sort of mop-up operations also, I think, in terms of the board. Germany's almost dead. England's
Gary's
almost
clinging on.
Wow, this is pretty quick demise for Germany. Who would have thought that England might actually, if things go right for them, outlive Germany?
In fact, he's still got 2, hasn't he? Because
Yes, yeah,
Russia's
that's
just
true.
left Denmark.
Denmark went out, yeah. So both of them are on 2, actually.
That's a good point. That's a good, excellent point. But they're still both almost dead.
Yeah. All right. Okay. 888 with our AIR buddies.
And France no longer at the top. Burgundy is breached.
Mm-hmm.
Burgundy is breached. Russia is in Denmark. Will they stay this time? Maybe not, because Kiel has also moved into Holland. Yeah, this is just like brutal. England is still quarreling with France and Germany, so they never got to make that deal with England. Not
England
looking
gets
good.
Liverpool back, but loses
Yes.
Denmark.
You'll never walk alone. Let's see if they can keep it in full. They should actually, right? Yeah, they do, and they keep Eddie. They piff that German fleet. Wow. Now it's Russia. Russia is in North Atlantic. England loses Denmark, but at least they've gotten Liverpool back, so they stay on 2. Goodbye, Germany. Thanks for playing, Lauren. That was a tough one.
No, they kept London, didn't they?
Oh yeah, right. My bad. Yeah.
London's German. Yeah.
True. And
so that means they get to keep their army where, Robert?
In Ruhr.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm enjoying this a lot. Keep going.
And Lyon is supporting Western Med into Spain, south coast. So Italy is just marching on. They're in Spain, they're in Marseille, they're in Holland. This is wow.
I should clarify that for everyone watching this, what we're hearing is Ruhr pronounced correctly.
Yes, yeah.
Not incorrectly as the rest of us pronounce it. But anyway, keep going.
All right. Then we've got winter.
Yes.
Oh, it seems to have stopped. Oh, there we go.
So 999, they all move in total harmony. Fleet.
So Roney has the tiebreaker here, right? Because he was bigger in 1904.
Yes. And actually, if I'm not sure, this is a point where Bradley might start walking over to the other board repeatedly and look who's doing well and who might be on what score and sort of try to calculate if it's fine for him.
Oh, he was a frequent visitor. Yeah.
I can imagine to make sure that he's actually fine by taking a 2nd or 3rd place, or if he actually needs to somehow convince his allies or stab them or something, that he will get the top. But as we know, it's probably easily enough if he gets 2nd or 3rd. So he might as well say, yeah, thank you, Roney. You were a good ally. I don't mind if you are ahead of me because of the tiebreaker.
True. All right, 1907, we've got a convoy to Edinburgh. Germans are going to be dead, barring some interesting move on the continent. French do get back to mid-Atlantic, but I'm not sure it matters. I think this is really just all mop-up. I think we just move on to the fall and see what happens in the fall.
Yeah. This is England annoying FG and the AR rolling over FG from the other side. Lots of holds might be that they are setting up for a draw. Could very well.
but not with England being eliminated, because they didn't even try to kill Liverpool here, for example.
So maybe they say, screw this.
England was busy bouncing his armies in North Atlantic.
In Iceland. They were both ordered to Iceland.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
And that's it. So I guess congratulations, Bradley Grace, I would think, right? 62 points, 3rd place.
Indeed.
On countback. And
as somebody who likes to look at the game in front of me and not care as much about the tournament, congratulations, Roney, for a really well played AIR as well.
Especially if you only play 2 boards, like it was for him the situation where he knew that he was probably not in the hunt for the tournament anyway because he didn't play round 1. So yeah, I think he did very well on the 2 boards he was on, and hope that he will have more chances to play face to face in the future.
Sometimes we focus a little bit too much on who's in contention to, quote, win the tournament. Most people are not in contention. So what is their rationale? What is their motive to play? And their motive is to make their score as good as possible and have fun. And we sometimes forget that when we're doing tournament coverage that most of the people know they're not in contention. They're playing for something else, like doing well on that particular board.
And here we have the final standings. I've just worked out how to put these on the screen, so apologies for not doing them between rounds, but here we are.
Just in time for the finish of the broadcast, you made it. That's the most important thing.
Well, obviously, kudos to Bradley Grace for playing so well, but in all 3 rounds, but particularly the first 2 rounds. And way to go, Wardy, for this very strong second place showing. Way to go.
I'm happy with that. Yeah, pretty good. Had it not been for that that silly misorder at the start of my second game, things might have been a little bit closer.
See it that way. It didn't cost you a position, so just imagine you would have been at 225 instead of 220. What would 5 points do now?
Well,
you also don't know. It's a moving machine with a lot of moving parts. You don't know what having an extra center would have meant in the game. For all we know, it could have been worse for you. We really don't know.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, and some good finishes as well. Roney with just 2 boards in 6th. That is a very good result. Matt Smith taking home 3rd. I think he was from Sweden, right? So always nice to see some of the people from abroad doing well too. So it's nice that you Brits let them play as well and didn't just stick with each other and just threw them off the board.
Well, I'm assuming Matt is not actually Swedish originally.
Probably not.
No, he is British. He's from London originally, but he lives and works in Sweden these days.
Which is awesome.
True. That is not a very Swedish name, to be fair. But to be fair, Günther Betzen is also a name that suggests something else.
Yeah, part German, part English is Günther.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But yeah, I shall bring up the second page as well.
Well, while you're doing that, I just wanted to say it's been fun to do this broadcast with you all for our inaugural attempt at GamedayLive Europe.
Yes.
Yeah, I can only agree.
The first of many.
Totally, I hope so. Thank you for hosting, Wardy, and thank you, David, for sticking with us, even though it took a bit longer than planned. I know we are taking time off of your daytime. For us, it's sort of late already. Late-ish.
Okay. It was fun.
Well, congratulations to Bradley. Thank you very much to Chris Wolger for organising and inviting us all over to what is a lovely town that I'd not visited before. And thank you very much for the 2 of you to explore these and relive these games with me. It's been great fun. Hopefully we'll get some more European tournaments going in the next couple of years and try and revive what was once a very thriving hobby over here. And hopefully it will quell my jealousy of those who live in Chicago, and indeed Hickory, North Carolina, or where do you Chapel Hill?
That's where the tournament is, but I live in Hickory, North Carolina, which is 3 hours west of there, close to the mountains.
Wow, you're too scared to host it in your backyard? What's going on there?
Well, no, I do my own thing here. The Chapel Hill thing is because when I first started it in 1987, I lived in Chapel Hill and I was going to school there because that's where the University of North Carolina is.
Okay. Well, I was 2 years old then, and Robert hadn't been thought of yet, looking for his wonderful skincare collection.
This episode's really gone in an interesting direction if we're talking about skincare.
On that, we were hoping to bring you some the EDC top board. We will get that to you at some point in the future, no doubt. And I do have some interesting interviews that perhaps we can once I get those sorted, we can put them out on the YouTube channel as the back channel branding. If I am not a poor man's Ed Sullivan, what am I? Thank you very much, you guys, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. Cheerio.
All right. See y'all later.
Bye-bye.